Hey, Melissa, it's me.
Okay. Hi, Jay. Jess, and I know Jay's too. Jay's there too. Okay, Brian, I guess we're ready. Or Rob. Rob, sorry.
Either one,
Pardon
that's
me.
fine.
Go ahead, Rob. Thank you.
Alrighty, welcome everyone to this evening's Doney Park Timberline Fernwood Area Plan Committee meeting. I'd like to take a moment just to welcome everyone here and congratulate everyone on working together on this important project. We're going to start this afternoon's meeting with some introductions. I understand, is Supervisor Archuleta online?
I haven't seen her join yet.
Okay, but I understand Supervisor Begay is with us. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm here.
Supervisor Begay, your audio is a little bit distorted, but is there anything you'd like to share with us?
I'm here to see how I can help.
Okay, I heard that you're looking for ways that you can help, and we certainly appreciate that. We value all the public's opinions. That's the whole point of what's going to be coming up here next with our public comment. And we thank you for your participation this evening. Is anything else you'd like to share?
You. No, basically that I'm glad. I want to thank all the people that are participating in this evening's meeting, and it's very important that we band together and to address issues together and to ensure that we're safe and sound, and that our environment is something that that we need to take care of. So with that, I just want to say thank you, and as we go along, I might have some comments. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And public comments are exactly what we have next on our agenda. So unless that big sigh from Melissa says something different.
Well, did you want to go through and do introductions? Just do some introductions. We have quite a few people who've joined us tonight.
Okay, sure, we can do introductions. Hello, everybody. I'm Rob Wilson. I'm one of the co-chairs of this committee, and I'd like to welcome everyone here this evening. I don't have a good screen to show everyone here, so Melissa, perhaps you could go through and call each person by name and ask them just a brief intro.
I sure will. I'll just go right down the list. So Jessica Simmons.
Hi, Jessica Simmons. I am the wildlife planner for Coconino County.
John Ruggles.
Thank you. John Ruggles. I am on the Planning and Zoning Commission from District 2. Been there over 9 years now, so that's about it, and that's enough.
Thanks, John. Harriet Young.
Harriet Young, representing Waukee Road and the outskirts.
And a member of the committee.
And a member of the committee, yes.
Thank you. Next up is Russell Weedman.
Yes, this is, yes, can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, this is Russell Weedman. I'm a 40-year resident of Doney Park, Timberline area, and I wanted to be part of the meeting and hear what's going on. So, and thank everybody for all the work they've done.
Thank you, Russell. I see an iPhone. I believe that's Jess McNeely. Is that you, Jess?
Yes, it is. Thanks, Melissa. Hi, I'm Jess McNeely. I work with Melissa in planning and zoning. I'm the planning manager for the county and assistant director of the community development department.
Thanks, Jess. Next up is Jacob Moffo.
Hi, I'm Jacob Moffo. I'm a student at NAU, and I am currently an interning at Coconino County Community Development. I'm helping Melissa do this update.
Yes, so Jacob will be a new addition to our staff that we will be hopefully putting to good use over the next few months.
Do you keep your interns in a box?
Jacob, explain where you are.
No, I'm under my bed, so I have a loft bed, so I have my desk under it. So yeah.
I asked that too. It's awesome.
Okay.
Liz Baldwin. You're muted, Liz. Unmute. Just so Liz, go to the
I got
bar.
it. I found it.
Got it.
I
Okay,
found it.
cool.
Yes. Liz Baldwin, been on the committee, and I'm honored to be on the committee since its conception last year. Been living in Doney Park for 24 years, and I'm excited that we have new faces joining, especially people from administration, like Mr. Gay. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Liz.
Yep.
Monica, Julian.
Hi, I'm Monica. I am a committee member and I'm the silly one that did this 20 years ago that decided to do it again.
Because you had so much fun.
Actually, yes.
Awesome. Brian Bates.
Hi, I'm Brian Bates. I'm the co-chair along with Rob Wilson. I've been a 40-year resident, and I'd like to acknowledge that this is our first anniversary of this committee meeting.
That's right. Thank you. Dave.
Oops, I'm guessing I'm the only Dave. So Dave Wessel with the Regional Transportation Organization, Metro Plan.
I'm another Dave, Dave Browning, here for about 15 years, Doney Park, and retired.
I think we have a frozen Melissa.
Uh-oh.
My apologies, everybody. My internet just did something funny. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so we may need to all, after introductions, turn off our videos. It could be affecting our bandwidth. So I was calling on Dave Browning.
Yeah.
He already introduced himself.
Oh, he did? Okay, well, great. I didn't hear it, so terrific. I see next Autumn Montoya. Autumn, would you like to introduce yourself? Autumn, can you hear me? Okay, I guess we'll move on then. Cheryl, would you, I believe, if you can hear me, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everybody. My name is Cheryl Barlow. I am from Tuba City, and I am the executive assistant to Supervisor Judy Begay with District 4.
Oh, thank you. Welcome, and thanks for joining us.
Yes, thank you for the invite.
You're welcome. Look forward to having you participate in this. The next one I see up is Switz, S-W-I-T-Z. Switz, would you like to introduce yourself? Okay, let's see. We'll move on. The next one I see is NY Aziz Loan. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. Naomi Yazzie Sloan. I'm with Judy Begay, Supervisor Begay's office. I'm new to the county.
Great. Thanks for
Thank you
joining
the
us.
invite.
You're welcome. And then I see Jim Clifford.
Jim Clifford, work for W.L. Gore. Also, I'm a District 4 Planning and Zoning Commissioner, and I'm a committee member.
Thanks, Jim. Jay Christelman, Jay's iPad.
Yes, good evening, everyone. Jay Christelman, Community Development Director. Thank you for your participation this evening. Thanks, Melissa.
You're welcome. And Dave Wessel.
Yeah, I jumped on top of Dave Browning's introduction earlier, so you cut off. I thought you were talking to me. So I'm there. I'm here. Thank you.
Thank you, Dave. And Chris McLean. Chris, did you want to introduce yourself?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, my name is Chris McLean. I own Applied Septic here in town in Doney Park. I'm just a small business owner and want to be in touch with my community. Thanks for letting me join in.
Great. Thanks for joining. And Evelyn, did we get to you? Evelyn Browning? I mean,
Evelyn Wani.
Evelyn Wani, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
I'm Evelyn. I'm a committee member and I'm representing Timberline.
Thank you. Did I miss anybody? All right, great. Well, I would suggest everyone that we try to just turn off the videos. It might assist with our keeping connections. And I'm going to go ahead and share screen again.
Melissa?
Yes.
I think you missed me. I'm Bernice Carver.
Oh, Bernice, I'm sorry. I didn't see you come in. Okay.
Yeah, got a lot going on here. I've been in Flagstaff, about 44 years. I lived in Doney Park and worked for the school district at Gore and the county health department for many years. I retired from the health department.
Thanks for jumping in on that, Bernice. I appreciate it. And it looks like Autumn and DJ Montoya messaged that they're Doney Park residents of many years. They're interested to learn about the plan, and the microphone isn't working. So anyone feel free to send a message in the chat, and we can, if you're having audio troubles, I will read your message. So we can just go back a second to the agenda. Rob, if you like, if my computer will work.
Sure.
There we go. There we go.
The thing I may want to mention to everyone is if you're not actually participating in a conversation immediately, muting your microphone will make it easier for everyone else to hear the speakers that are. So that would be helpful also.
Terrific. So next up, we will do public comment, and then we'll go through the meeting notes. We'll review the vision statement again, and the bulk of tonight's meeting will be focused on reviewing the goals and policies that have been drafted to date. So we'll get into that in a bit. We'll talk about the schedule moving forward, some of our outreach planning, and then we'll conclude. So then, Rob, with that, then did you want to ask for any public comments?
Yes, please. If there is anyone joining us this evening that is not a member of the commission and would like to share some thoughts about our work here, now is your opportunity. So please unmute yourself and share your thoughts. And hearing none, I would like to make sure everyone's aware that we're going to offer that same opportunity at the end of this meeting. So if after watching you have some thoughts you'd like to share, please make sure to do that, because this, I'm sure everyone on this commission feels as I do, and that is that we're really working for everyone here. And so your input is critical to our success. And with that, we'll move on to the review of the December meeting notes.
Yep, December 13th. Everybody should have had those.
I would like to ask any of the members of the commission if you have any inputs or comments on the notes from the December 13th meeting. Hearing none, I will assume those are good as presented, and we will move on to the next agenda item. So Melissa, can we go to the review vision statement?
Absolutely. This is just an overview again of the 4 sections of the vision statement that you all have drafted, and just to remind everyone about what a vision is. And so that's your overall image of what the community of what Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood wants to be now and in the future. What are your values? What inspires you? And how do you describe it? So using that as a prompt, these are what we came up with as far as the categories. And we'll look at the natural resources, open space, and environment. We looked at this last time in November, and the yellow highlights are the changes. I didn't include draft or track changes here, but this is the draft vision for this category that we've gotten drafted to date. So I can read it out loud, and then for the committee members, if you have any thoughts or comments, this is still a work in progress, but we've spent quite a bit of time on this already. So I'll just go ahead and read it. Our community's priority for the future. Yes.
If I could interrupt just one second.
Yeah.
Our objective here this evening would be to, now that we've had a chance to review these, solicit inputs and incorporate those, to pretty much lock these down tonight. Is that a fair assessment?
I think we definitely need to get to a point where the committee is satisfied with these and, you know, get ready to put it out to our community. also recognizing that, you know, it is somewhat of a work in progress. So I would suggest that we review these every time, to keep coming back to these, to do check-ins, to make sure that they are still current. I think, like I said, we've spent a lot of time on these already. So they've had a lot of reflection, but I wanted to put them back out there for you another time. And hopefully we can just continue to look at these and move on without spending much more time on it. Does that sound okay?
Well, my question would be is if we're going to keep changing the basis for the rest of the plan, how are we ever going to get a plan done?
Right. Well, that's a good point. So maybe with that said, we can look at it this time and then just keep it up here each subsequent meeting to remind us where we are, what our starting point is.
Yeah, and I'd like some other
Okay.
folks' inputs on that. I
Sure.
don't want Brian or anyone else, any thoughts on how comfortable we are with these at this point? Perhaps this is our last chance at an edit on these, that we can, you know, consider them pretty good to go and move on to the more detail.
Thank you, Rob. This is Brian Bates. I'm co-chair with Rob. So we have been working on these quite a bit. I think we've got them pretty well articulated. And I do agree with Melissa that there may be some item that comes up while we're working on more of the policies and the implementation that we want to come back and look at these. But my come from at this point is that I think these are pretty well articulated, though if other members of the committee have concerns, I still want to be able to listen to them. So I'm not sure that we're adopting these tonight, but I would think that they are, how should I say this, that we have a good platform with our draft visions.
Okay.
Is that accurate, Melissa?
I think that is a really very accurate statement.
Thank
But
you.
it's up to the committee. This is something that you all are creating. So we want to hear from
I'll give you a quick opinion on this. Melissa, I line up with Rob's assessment on this. I think that we can get bogged down in the details. Every time somebody looks at this, they're going to see something different, and we really need to move.
Okay.
This is Bernice. I'll go ahead and start my video. We're going to have a draft vision for each one of these subdivisions, right? Of the overall Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood plan, right?
Well, these were the 4 categories that have been drafted. I'll go back one.
Okay, one I see up is natural resources, open space, and
here are the 4
environment.
categories.
Right. So we're going to have a vision plan for each one of those.
You've got a vision drafted for each one. That's right.
Right. Okay. When it says that is to maintain and protect the natural environment, resources, and open spaces that reflect our lifestyle and values. Now, was this done before we did our survey?
So this was done before the survey, and you all have revised it since the survey results came in. This was revised in November, during the November meeting.
Okay.
After we discussed the survey.
I'm wondering, when we're all out of the picture and the plan is finalized, what defines our lifestyle and values? Are we going to talk about how the majority of the survey people wanted large lot sizes and preserve the country lifestyle and what we consider Doney Park right now?
So so remember, this is just the vision, but the plan itself will be a text document that will describe the survey and the survey results. So yes, that will be further elaborated on.
Okay.
So we're not reviewing the text right now. These are just the vision statements.
Okay. The open space could not, there's a lot in here about the national forest and the wildlife and things like that, but open space also is in our land use too. So I want to make sure that it reflects that.
Okay, so we can review this section and then go on and look at the other 4, or rather the other 3 categories.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Yeah, I think these are good reminders though. And as Brian said, these are good platforms to jump from, but they're fairly well without getting into, extreme wordsmith detail, which I don't think we want to do that at this meeting.
Right.
But as long as the overall essence of the vision resounds with the committee, then I think it's worthwhile moving on.
Okay. Thank you.
Bernice, I'm with you, what you just said, and Melissa, this is Liz. I just want to comment, in our section that we have of our subcommittee, we're always using the word character, and maybe that will be good because it's just our section, but this is the vision, which is an overall global kind of summarization of those subcommittees that we're working on. So I don't know if the committee thinks that we should put that character, because it's not like our lifestyles and value, it's the character out here. And maybe I'm just going, like you said, don't go into details, but we've said it so much in our subcommittee, and I'm not seeing in this overall vision statement that's characters more. I mean, we have value, but it's the character of this lifestyle. We may value affordable housing, but we want the character of Doney Park to stay rural. And I don't see rural character in this little synopsis.
So
But-
remember, this one is just natural resource, open space, and environment. So we'll look at the land use. Let's just go maybe through the
Okay,
rest of them and then
okay.
come back
I was
to-
thinking, I didn't see land use. Okay, I'm going to
So
shut up.
we'll go
Thank
to,
you.
but I do want to read, there was a suggestion about a little bit of wording, and instead of saying forest lands, read national forests, so that then it's clear what we're talking about. So right here, we can work on that. But Rob, can we move to the next category? Would that work?
Well, unless there's anyone else that has comments
sorry.
on this particular category. So I think the two things that we've heard at this point are that we would like to make sure that open space is addressed more than just in the title of this, and that access should be more specific relating to the national forest. Does anyone else have comments on this particular statement?
We forgot to include state lands. There's a lot of state land around the Turkey Hills that has a lot of wildlife around it and a lot of native history around it also.
Is it state trust land, Bernice, that you're talking about?
Yes, it is.
Which technically we don't really have access to legally. Isn't that correct?
But if it's sold, it's going to become Doney Park.
Right.
It's within our boundaries.
It is.
But do you have access to it without a permit? I thought that most access to state lands need permits, depending on.
I have a permit, but most people that use it don't have a permit. And our sheriff patrols it.
So Bernice, what would you want to see included in here with respect to state trust lands?
That state trust lands, I would like to see the county purchase the state trust land and make an extension of what is the national park that's off of 40 at exit 204? Walnut Canyon.
Okay.
I would like to see an extension of Walnut Canyon to preserve the wildlife and access to trails back there for all the people that use it.
So Bernice, yeah, I don't know that, the county is not in a position to purchase state trust land. That's not something that, we would be, I guess, yeah. So that, I don't know if that, in terms of when we get into further into the policies, so that's something that we would even want to suggest in the plan, but I understand your sentiment there and wanting to, wanting that to be preserved. So,
access to forest and state lands. I mean, we are the state. We're the taxpayers that own the state lands right now. We talk about access to forest lands. Could we say and state lands?
Sure.
Comma, state lands, national and county parks.
I'll leave that up to the committee. I don't see why we can't add that.
I wonder, Bernice, kind of relating to what you're saying there. First, the state would have to place that particular parcel up for sale. Their management team decides what land goes for sale when. So, asking the county to purchase it might be out of, the scope of what this document could do.
Right.
So it wouldn't be, I think, beyond the scope to suggest that should additional open space or, park type lands become available, that the county actively pursue acquisition of that.
And that's something more for a policy statement.
Yeah, this is Brian. My comment is that I think we're getting off track and too much into what ought to be addressed further down, but not in the vision. Thank you.
Could we say forest and other lands? The forest lands can be traded also, and the county can't purchase the forest lands off, obviously, but maybe they could. If for a county park or something like that, just like Fort Hut Hill. And there's a lot of hunting back there. There's not just, there's a lot of people that recreate back there, hiking and we, even in the survey that really came out.
Right. And so the point of this sentence is to envision that you have access.
Right. That we want access
to parks, trails, and so right. And so whether or not it's forest, national forest lands, the national county parks, we can, if the committee is interested, we can add in state lands to be real specific.
I would like to do that. I would like to just say comma, forest lands, comma, state lands, comma, national and county parks, on and on.
I would like to make a suggestion that is a fairly common one, and you can lump it all under the term public lands.
There you go.
That includes state as well as national forest, BLM, and everything else.
Thank you, John.
Yeah.
You bet.
Thank you.
We'll shorten it. That's better. We'll have it even shorter. Wonderful.
Yes. Thank you.
I knew that there was great. Okay, you guys are awesome. Shall we move on to the next section?
Yes, please.
Okay, community character. I won't read it.
Give us all a moment to read it ourselves.
Yes.
Excuse me. This is Cheryl. If you don't mind, could you read it? Because I know Judy Begay is connected by phone.
Okay.
So have access to what's written.
I
would
sure
appreciate
will. Okay, I sure will. Rob, are you ready for me to read it then?
Sure am.
Okay, so this is the draft vision for community character. And it says, our community character is influenced by our rich cultural and historic diversity, natural environment and open space, expansive vistas and rural lifestyle. The diversity of our community is reflected in our history and place names. Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood, Winona, Cosnino. Our closely connected community reflects our independent lifestyle, reflects our reliance on each other for social support, and strives to be inclusive, fair, and safe. Our community character is reflected in design standards that demonstrate our appreciation for a distinctive variety of building styles, multitude of communities, and geographic differences within our planning area. We embrace opportunities to access and introduce travelers to places and landscapes north of and beyond our communities, such as Native American nations, national parks and monuments, and geologic wonders.
That being said, I'm soliciting inputs from the commission on any changes they feel necessary for this statement.
I like this one. I like this one a lot.
I'm curious what kind of opportunities are going to embrace to introduce travelers to other places without having a lot of billboards.
Well, billboards are not allowed by our sign ordinance, which is part of our zoning code. Just off-premise signs are not permitted. I think that's for the community to determine. We didn't, I mean, the group did not specifically define what those would be, but recognizing that Highway 89 is a major travel route and people
And
are
Melissa,
traveling through. Yeah.
I think this was part of the, the gateway. We're a gateway community going both directions.
Right.
And you all opted not to use that term, gateway.
Right. And I would choose an adjective for acceptable opportunities, because what I see out here now is filling stations and things that we're not considering terribly rural or even. So I think we might want to put an adjective in there. We embrace what kind of opportunities? If somebody has a good adjective, acceptable opportunities or sustainable opportunities. I haven't got a good word for it, but I think we might not welcome all of them.
Harriet, I think that the building code and the zoning codes already define what is and is not acceptable. And
Okay.
I think trying to do that with a word in this document
Okay.
would be almost impossible.
Hey, I've got to say, Rob is exactly right about that, based on my experience on the Planning and Zoning Commission. So.
Well, is our vision opportunities unlimited? That's my question.
I think we have to be, when we're drafting this document, it has to be cognizant of all of the other interrelated laws and rules and regulations, and under the assumption that those are in place and operational.
Okay.
We don't address speed limits and we don't address lots of other things in here because
Right.
all of that is addressed elsewhere.
Okay. Okay. So it's covered.
One thing that I was concerned about is that the zoning ordinance changes, and the zoning ordinance is going to use this as guidance, right? So next time they change the zoning laws, which could be yearly, and this is supposed to encompass 20 years, I'm concerned that they're going to read this and think, oh, well, we should change the zoning ordinance to allow for billboards.
Well, sorry, go ahead, Rob.
Oh, well.
Or was that John? Sorry.
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. I think that changes in the zoning ordinance are only second to changes in the United States Constitution in terms of how long they take to get done sometimes. So foreseeing something like that as just changing every year or so is not realistic. It just doesn't happen that way. So even things like changes to the design review that we deal with here, it just doesn't seem to work that way.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot slower. It's a lot more deliberate than you may think.
I have a suggestion here. I'm having a little problem with the word embrace because it seems a little more committed. If we welcome opportunities, it doesn't mean that we're going to do anything with them. You can look at them and say, hey, it works or it doesn't work.
Boy, that sums it up rather well, Dave.
Mm-hmm. I like that also, but I'm still wondering what opportunities we have. Is that putting a hotel on Highway 89 or?
You won't know until I show up.
So yeah, if I could just jump in here. I mean, remember, this is your vision, and it is good to think about the details like that. But remember, the vision is implemented with the goals and policies. That's really where this will come into play. And those are what will work so that you can achieve your vision. And, those goals and policies, as we've been talking about, really are primarily used for very specific projects. So whether or not the vision, and most vision statements do stay fairly general. This is already a fairly long vision statement. And at this stage, to get really specific is going to then veer into the, realm of where we're actually creating policies with a vision. And that's not the point that we want to do. Your vision wants to be succinct. You want it to be, easily read in a kind of a glance so that you get the essence of what you're trying to be for the future. And then we'll outline that in the goals and policies that we're working on now.
Yeah, I'm going to raise another one. We embrace opportunities to access and introduce. If we said, I don't know what access means. I think that might be part of what Bernice is what I keep rattling around as well. If we just left out access, maybe we embrace opportunities to introduce travelers to places and landscapes north.
What about for people that live in your community? Was access important for you all? Sorry, Rob, go ahead.
I have a suggestion because there's a lot of questions regarding access. I'm just a community member, and if I come across something of a vision, because when you're looking at a vision, you're encompassing everybody. It's not somebody in particular, a resident. You're including the community, the social, just anybody outlining that comes into Flagstaff. But what I suggest is maybe travelers embrace access to places and landscapes north of and beyond, because you take out the opportunity, but it just shortens everything, because you're telling, visitors, this is what you want them to do, because everybody, no matter how you look at it, is a traveler when they go and hike, go and take walks or runs or whatever, and they're basically a traveler. So that's my suggestion.
I'm sorry, and who's speaking?
I'm sorry, this is Cheryl.
Okay, thanks, Cheryl. So,
Melissa, if I could,
go ahead, please.
One quick comment here. I think this is exactly why Melissa so wisely told me earlier that I was wrong, that this should be done and good after tonight. I think we may be better served once we get into the specific policies and get those drafted, going back and ensuring that this last paragraph then reflects what it needs to based on what the policies we've adopted are. Because right now we're trying to almost put policy into this. And so
right.
If we wait.
Good point. That is right.
And then come back and make sure that this matches our policies, we'll probably be better served.
Thank you. That's exactly right on the money there. Yes.
Yeah. I have a comment. The Supervisor Begay.
Supervisor Begay, you are breaking up. We can't hear you very well. I'm sorry.
Okay, I'm trying to sit on top of a hill here. And what I was saying, that vision statement is pretty much you can work off of that to develop policies or services or whatever, everything that encompasses that. Or you can do your policies and then make a vision statement. The vision statement should be very short, to the point, and it's eye-catching, and you already know what it's about. So the previous comment that was made, that's very true. I think because we're going to go round and round and round with this, and we're just going to make it harder. And so what do we want? What do we want? And a lot of vision statements are done that too. But if you really, really look at vision statement, then you can do your policies on. And I'm just making that comment.
Yes.
Okay, so unless someone thinks we need to continue to debate this particular paragraph, if you're comfortable with coming back and looking at this again once we've gotten policy statements drafted, then I think it's fair that we can move on to the next.
Excellent recommendation. Thank you. Yes. So that's why we'll be looking at these every time, but we're going to go ahead and move on to the next one, which is a big paragraph.
Read that for us, please.
I'll read this. This is land use growth, development, and partnerships. Our area plan supports responsible land use and planned growth that maintains our rural lifestyle and character. We embrace a future that accommodates new residents while ensuring that new development is integrated into our community in a manner that respects cultural and historic resources, supports community values and aesthetics, and considers the environment and long-term viability of natural habitat and water resources. To achieve this vision, we look for residential growth to occur as planned communities and subdivisions on vacant parcels rather than on United States, rather than on U.S. Forest Service land.
Oh, okay.
We encourage housing styles that offer a variety of housing and affordability options consistent with the character of our area plan. Commercial growth is primarily located within identified rural activity centers along major transportation corridors, Highway 89 in Townsend, Winona, and is intentionally planned to avoid linear strip development along these commercial corridors.
This is Evelyn.
Hey, Evelyn.
Hi, I think like what Supervisor Judy said earlier, that a vision statement is a short vision. I think from to achieve on is unnecessary. If a vision statement is just a short vision, it's the policies and goals is how we're going to achieve it.
I'll second that.
I like that too.
So you're saying from to achieve this vision to the end, delete that part.
Well, it seems like that's what the policies are for.
Exactly.
Okay. All right.
I agree.
Okay.
Evelyn, this is Brian Bates. Evelyn, I think you made an excellent point. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Evelyn, thanks for turning the light bulb on. I see this very clearly. Thank you.
Well, the first clue was to achieve this vision.
Okay, this is an evolving process. Should we move on to the last category, which
Yes,
is
please.
transportation?
Yes, please.
And I'll read it. The transportation vision is that the transportation system in Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood integrates multimodal facilities for transit, pedestrian, bicycle, and equestrian users. Our future envisions transportation corridors that are safe and accessible for wildlife, motorists, and all non-motorist users. Signage, lights, and other treatments provide motorist warnings in key wildlife crossing areas on Highway 89. The Arizona Department of Public Safety and Coconino County Sheriff law enforcement agencies work cooperatively to enforce speed limits. Enhanced opportunities for transit and commuter options are possible at key locations throughout the planning area. County maintained unpaved rural roads are routinely maintained and treated for dust. Maintenance, including dust abatements of private unpaved rural roads, is understood to be the responsibility of local property owners.
I think the Evelyn rule should be applied. Aren't we setting out policy? Evelyn opened my eyes, but aren't we setting out policy rather than saying a vision somewhere after the second sentence?
True.
Yeah, I think the enhanced from enhanced opportunities on is not as redundant.
Yeah.
I'll second what Harriet said about this. I think this could be much more brief, just as she has suggested.
So
This is Liz, and I agree with what John just said. I think it was you, John, because isn't signage, lights, and treatments, those are all the policies and treatments we're going to do. Like Harriet said, this 2 sentences and then stop.
Yes, Liz, that was exactly my thought relative to this, that that is really policy, comes along later. So
okay.
Could we stop after users?
Yes, I think that's what they're
Yeah.
suggesting, from
Uh-huh.
signage, lights, and others, delete all the rest of it.
Yep, that's the point that I would suggest also.
You guys are turning into minimalists.
Now let's go back to the first one.
I'm going to go against the tide here for just one moment and suggest we reconsider enhanced opportunities for transit and commuter options are possible at key locations. That's a policy. That's a vision, not a policy, and one that we would want to, in policies, define how we might be able to implement that. And Dave, maybe you have some thoughts on that, but I think that is in line with a vision, not a policy.
Yeah, I think you're right now that you put my eyes up.
Keep that one sentence, enhanced opportunities for transit and commuter options are possible at key locations. That is a vision.
That's a good point Rob has made, and it's not really policy. It's more of a vision statement. It's what we want to see.
This is David Wessel. I would agree with that and would suggest that you put it after the first sentence. So it says transit, pedestrian, bicycle, and equestrian users. Enhanced opportunities for transit and commuter options are possible at key locations.
It flows much better that way. I agree.
What does the group think about maintaining a sentence like the county maintains unpaved roads, but all private roads are the responsibilities of the local property owners? Is that policy or is that vision?
That's the way it is now.
That's policy, isn't it?
That's policy.
Yeah, that's what I'm
That
thinking.
I think is policy.
Okay, good. I agree.
Okay, so we're good with vision number 4, and I heard a motion, kind of, to maybe relook at vision 1 now with our new frame of reference. Melissa, could we go back to that slide for just 1 second?
Yes, natural resources, open space, and environment.
And I promise I won't delay this anymore.
Could we say that reflect our rural lifestyle and values and shorten it from there?
I kind of like this one the way it is. It's I don't see specific policies in there. This is you know, when you look at this, it says these are kinds of things that we think about.
The only sentence I see here is the recognizing that wildlife relies. That's directing action. That's a policy. We will work with partner agencies.
Yeah.
We've already recognized.
I think that's about all you want to take out of this. Consider.
Could we add rural lifestyle and values? Add the word rural?
Hey, not a bad idea.
No.
Well, I mentioned that before. Let's use world character, and they said it was already. But maybe now this is time to put it in. I don't know.
You can add it in.
So we're going to add rural in front of lifestyle. We're going to include all of it with the exception of the sentence that says recognizing that wildlife, and make that more of a policy statement later on when we get into the details.
I actually think it's already in there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's.
So it doesn't need to be here then.
Yeah, I think I remember it being in one of the policies that we did.
I think it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Good suggestion.
All right. We have
Okay.
completed our review of the vision statement.
Good job, everybody.
Good job, Melissa.
Okay, Rob, the next task we're on, our goals and policies review.
Excellent.
And this very busy slide is here so that what you can see, the green boxes are the ready to go boxes. So these are the chapters or elements that the subcommittees have worked hard to get ready for the full committee to review. So we've got a draft set of goals and policies for community character, culture, and history, for natural environment, open space, parks, trails, and recreations, for community services, and for sustainability and resilience. The Land Use Growth and Development Subcommittee has been working very hard as well. We're meeting again tomorrow morning. It's taken a little bit longer to get through some of those because that's pretty complex. There's a lot to it, so they're putting good thought into it, but we're not quite done with those to roll them out. The other ones that we are going to need to be scheduling very quickly are transportation and circulation. And we have done a lot of work with Public Works to go through the existing goals and policies. So Liz had been the one volunteer for this subcommittee. If anyone else wants to jump in, I know she would appreciate that. We do have a draft ready for you to review, and I'll be contacting everybody next week to get a meeting scheduled. With public safety, we had Rob Wilson, Dave Browning, Bernice, who had offered to assist with this as a subcommittee. And then Mark Gaylord, he's the chief with Summit Fire District. He has volunteered to assist. And just so you know, we did end up presenting last night to the Summit Fire District. If you remember, we were scheduled last month and the timing did not work out. They ran late on another agenda item. So we presented last night to them. I can share with you the presentation. They wanted to just know where we were in the process, but Mark, the Chief Gaylord, had offered to work with this subcommittee on and bring some policy recommendations from the Summit Fire District Board to you for consideration. So again, I'll put out an email. We'll get a meeting scheduled. And then the same with water resources and wastewater treatment. We've got Dave Browning, Brian Bates, and Bernice had volunteered. And then John Ruggles, you've offered to review the design review guidelines. We're going to get through these others first and then jump into that. So
Yeah, I think we can work through that rather quickly.
right, I agree. There may be some minor changes to it, but I think they're in pretty good shape. Would anyone else like to add their name to any of these blue box subcommittees? Okay. So Rob, with that then, the next agenda item is to jump right into the goals and policies review. So I was going to exit this presentation and get into the actual goals and policies document. How does that sound?
Excellent.
Okay, great. So give me a moment.
I'm sure I'm speaking for all of us here, Melissa. We appreciate all your hard work.
Oh, thank you. It's not just me. You guys are doing an amazing job, all of you together. And let's see, in order of our chart there, if we look at community character, culture, and history, we will look at that one first. So did that appear for everybody?
Yes, it's a Word document.
Okay, and how is the view?
Smaller than would be preferred.
Tell me when.
Getting close.
It's going to be different.
You turn off your edit bar over on the right and then
yeah, I will, but there are some comments that we're going to need to review.
Okay, that's pretty good.
And I just wanted to give a little preamble here. So in the current area plan, our 2001 plan, there is a chapter about history, very recent history. It just kind of picks up in the late 1800s. So, you know, we're looking to expand that quite a bit with this update to really capture the long-term cultural influences that have been, that we know have been lived in your area for thousands of years. So that's part of the one of the reasons for, you know, a major update of this, but we're also adding to it in terms of community character, culture, and history. So expanding this significantly. There really aren't any goals or policies existing relating to culture or history in the existing plan. So with that then, all of these are pretty much new to this plan. And that's why you don't really see track changes. There are some track changes, but I'm going to go ahead and use a simple view. I think it will be easier for everybody to look at. And I know that for this chapter, we had Evelyn, Wani, and Monica Julian had worked with this. And I don't know if Evelyn or Monica, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if either of you would like to speak to this and we can start going through them.
Go for it, Monica.
Under the bus.
Okay, not funny. Go for it, Melissa.
Okay, thanks a lot. So I'll just jump right in. So there is a goal, and I will, unless you all would rather me not, but it sounds like I should read these so everybody can hear.
Yes,
There is a goal that we've identified that is under a category archaeology, history, and culture. And this reads, identify and protect Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood's archaeological, cultural, and historic resources. So that's our goal. We have 2 policies nested under that. The first one is explore options for cultural surveys that identify existing cultural and historic resources. And number 2, identify opportunities to preserve and develop interpretive features that highlight the historic Route 66 right-of-way as part of an interconnected regional trail system. And a little bit of background on that, there is a multi-state, interstate effort to link together the historic Route 66 right-of-way as part of a bicycle route. So it's actually the U.S. Route 66 bicycle route. So there are some efforts to tie that together, and that's an opportunity that would actually traverse through all of Coconino County and all of northern Arizona when this project gets off the ground.
This is Liz, and isn't coming off the US Route 66 bicycle route tour also the Arizona Trail? Is there anything, I didn't write this document, so I don't know, is there something about Arizona Trail in there? Because there is a bike path and it's marked Arizona Trail.
So yeah, I think that there would be a linkage to that. We've got a separate, so this is, remember, we're our chapter is community character, culture, and history. So there are definitely a lot of policies and goals related to trails in that other chapter.
Okay, thank you.
Any thoughts on this goal and these policies? Or did we miss something? Is there anything to add?
Sounds good.
Okay, I'm going to go on then.
I have a thought about encourage the expansion of Walnut Canyon. There's a lot of historical, I mean, for thousands of years around here, that I'm concerned that the development is going to go away forever. And we have an opportunity now without the development there to protect a lot of these areas.
What would your suggestion be for a policy?
To encourage the expansion of Walnut Canyon.
Who would do that? Go ahead.
That would be federal. Walnut Canyon is under federal control. Is it even in our planning area, the existing Walnut Canyon?
No, the tip of the canyon itself is, but the actual monument is not.
There's a lot of pit houses along, around the Turkey Hills, and there's just a lot of culture there that
there are a lot of archaeological resources in your planning area. We remember when we heard
sure.
Yeah, the
Peter
presentation
Pillis.
for Peter Pillis, thank you, from the Forest Service.
If I may interject, Melissa, I think that Peter would be a good person to bring in on this, in that he is the Coconino National Forest archaeologist. And Rob is exactly right. That's under federal land control, and it would take an act of, I don't know if it takes an act of Congress or not, but something similar in order to enlarge that area. And it was enlarged, what, about 5 years ago?
This is Dave Wessel. I think that's an excellent idea to bring in the forest archaeologist. I'm wondering if the Picture Canyon area provides an opportunity that's more germane to the Doney Park area to connect Turkey Hills and Picture Canyon as a kind of a regional cultural site.
We're connected with Walnut Canyon. I've ridden underneath the freeway from Doney Park over to the east side of Walnut Canyon and back in the canyons there. I've ridden my horse back there. And that would be a wonderful, I mean, to link all three of them. And even beyond that, because Picture Canyon, you can go right underneath Highway 89 and get over to the west side of Highway 89 over to Sandy Seep Trail and Mount Eldon.
So Bernice, those new routes probably would be better served in our transportation vision as opposed to cultural preservation here.
Oh, yeah, I'm thinking of both though. I was thinking, first I was thinking of cultural preservation because I'm really concerned about these places being defiled and just paved over.
Melissa or Jess, maybe can you talk to us at all about existing protections for archaeological sites under planning and zoning, building codes, those kinds of things? Are there any in the county right now?
Sure, I can speak to that. I'm sure Jess will chime in if I miss something. But so the county, we don't have a separate code or a portion of our zoning code that deals specifically with cultural resources. However, when there is a rezoning or a subdivision, that is when, as we've talked about, our comprehensive plan and an area plan, goals and policies are consulted. And if there is a policy and a goal that strongly addresses preserving cultural archaeological resources, then that's when that's applied to that project.
I have a comment. On the number one there, it says explore options and so on. What we might want to do is just add to that identify opportunities to preserve the ones that we find in a summary thing. But yeah, we said we explore options, but it doesn't say what we do about it like it does in number 2.
So it should say identify and protect.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent suggestion on Dave's part. And the other comment I'd like to make is that as the county it goes, we're pretty limited in what we can do. And essentially what we have done in the past with subdivision or other changes like use permits is try to work with the applicant and what they are willing to do. Basically is where we wind up. It all depends on the applicant on that. State law, of course, limits what we can do about preserving anything on private property. Matter of fact, the state allows you to do as much pot hunting on your own property as you want. So we depend on what the applicant is willing to accede to when we do rezonings or subdivisions or use permits. So Dave's suggestion is a good one.
And I just added to that, explore options for cultural surveys and protection plans.
There you go.
Because the protection plans then implement the protection of what's found in the surveys.
Okay.
And sorry, go ahead.
I just said nicely put.
So I wanted to get, sorry, go ahead.
I'm just gonna, Bernice, we're good with that? We can move on here? Okay.
Yeah, I'd
Like that?
somehow like to try to, you know, that there's the Friends of Walnut Canyon. I'd still like to try to preserve as much land around Walnut Canyon as we can that is in our area. And that includes that state land.
As a buffer, is that what you're suggesting, Bernice?
Well, just as an expansion, there's a ton of, I mean, there's hundreds of elk out there, and and deer. And I mean, there's just such a huge amount of wildlife out there and cultural artifacts. It's just, I would just hate to see it be paved over.
If that area though is outside our area plan, there's really not much we can address here with that.
Well, the tip of the canyon is in the planning area.
Okay.
And the state land will be in our planning area if it is sold.
And then there is Picture Canyon as well, as Dave Wessel mentioned. So there are some ideas here. Does anyone, so it seems like there is room for a third policy in terms of really bringing these adjacent exceptional cultural sites and looking to the area plan just to provide some language about additional protections for those. So I think we should move on, but let's make a note here. We do need to capture that idea. Okay.
Yeah, this committee could perhaps put some more thought into that and come back with a better suggestion that we can go on.
And what was the third place? Was it Turkey Hills? Is that what you said, Bernice?
Yeah, the Turkey Hills is part of that state land. Part of the Turkey Hills, the North Turkey Hill.
Okay.
The front of it is Forest Service, but behind it and part of it is state land.
Okay, so we need to come back to that, and I will consult with Peter Pillis. So thank you for reminding me on that. All right, we have a little bit more, but this seems like we're heading in a good direction with our goal for archaeology, history, and culture. The next goal addresses natural quiet. And the goal says to reduce effects of noise, it says reduce effects of noise pollution to improve the natural quiet in Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood. And the policies nested with that: 1, work with BNSF Railroad to consider reducing the use of train whistles. And I imagine that was quite an effort that the city of Flagstaff went through because the train whistles have been minimized through Flagstaff, but that could certainly be a policy.
One thing Melissa, this is
Hi.
Jim Clifford.
Hi, John.
One thing you need to remember on that, train whistles are a federal mandate for safety. So to go to Burlington, Northern Santa Fe to consider reducing those, that is a federal law.
Okay.
As to the time span and the amount of toots that they do, you'll hear 2 toots and then 1 long toot as they go through the intersection. That's a federal mandate.
Okay.
So you need to really be careful on that one.
Yeah, this is Dave Wessel. So one, it should be train horns, probably. And you know, I think the whistles went out with the steam engine. And then you would need to establish a quiet zone and actually put up a barrier that you can't drive around to have that quiet zone. You would still have the wayside horn there to alert people. So you would reduce the sound similar to what they have at Steve's and Fanning. And if you want to say work with BNSF, you might also include the Federal Rail Administration to address the concern that was raised.
Well, but then this actually I guess brings up another question. Is this a policy that seems even reasonable to include in the plan?
I think it's reasonable. I mean, somebody's going to have to come up with the money to implement the quiet zone. But I mean, if you don't put in if you say, look, we have no money, and you never put in any policies, you don't even look at the opportunities. There may be grants and other things that are available.
Okay. And because we have heard that it is an issue for some people that live here.
Yeah, the people that live in that area would definitely agree it belongs in here. And I think we owe it to them to do that, at least try.
And Dave, what was that wording with the federal or Jim?
The Federal Railroad Administration.
Okay.
And I'll just say that I live over here in Doney, north of the school here at Cromer, and I love the sound of that train horn miles away. But I appreciate the impact. I appreciate the impact on those who live close by, though.
Well, I just, are there any other noises other than train horns that we need to discuss?
I think there may be, this was a specific ask though that we heard, and I'm just trying to save this document, so hang on.
It seems like there are lots of helicopters going through now that we didn't have before, lots of sirens that we didn't have before. And I don't know if it's a COVID thing or, you know, I know it, yeah.
Bernice, I can tell you that the majority of the helicopter traffic going basically in the north-south direction through our area is usually life flight helicopters between here and going north. And I, you know, as disruptive as that is, I suspect that might be a goal that would be beyond our reach.
Yeah.
Rob and Bernice, that's Guardian Air, and that is true. They changed the route though maybe 10 years ago. It's been going on for a while because there was a big Sierra Club rally up at NAU, and they talked about that, and I guess they changed the route of actual Guardian, because you're right, they used to go around us, but because of Grand Canyon quiet zones now, and they've changed all the Federation rules in the Grand Canyon of where they can fly. It changed Guardian's path too. And so they've been more busy because of COVID, but that path, because I have friends that work in Guardian, has been changed for a while. So it's just more, they're more busy now, but that path's been changed to fly over us more often.
I'm pretty sure it's directly over my house.
Yeah, me too.
Same here.
That's
I live
okay.
close to the hospital. I know what you mean. I hear them all the time.
Yeah, I every time I hear it, I sympathize for the people that are on board, and it makes it much easier to tolerate.
I do too, but knowing how much some of those flights cost, I think we could probably build another huge hospital out here that would be a lot closer to people and provide a lot of jobs for the cost of those Guardian flights. But that's hopefully something in the future.
I was going to say, Bernice, that's a new concept that we haven't talked about.
Yeah.
And it would be inconsistent with most everything we've defined in our plan.
Yeah, I'm not talking about in Doney Park. I'm talking about out closer to the reservation so that it would provide jobs out there, and also make it so that the time to get to help is a lot shorter.
Yeah.
Maybe a trauma center or something like that.
Okay, well, moving on from.
Right. So the second policy we have is encourage agencies and volunteer efforts to educate users of public lands to respect natural quiet around private lands. And I know that this came out specifically because of concerns with the increase in public land use, particularly since the pandemic, because we know that a lot of people have been impacted by
off-road
vehicles.
Yes.
And one of the ideas in terms of preserving natural quiet, you know, there are trying to think of strategies to make this happen. Is education is one aspect of that.
Didn't it? Oh, sorry, Melissa, I was saying, this is Liz. Didn't it one of our beginning meetings, we were talking about signage, or someone over in the Timberline area said a kiosk of saying respect the silence and a little bit of knowledge of, but I'm sure we don't have the funding to do that. It's signage, because how are you going to get agencies to go out there to do that? I mean, I guess volunteers, but they have no power.
Volunteer efforts. Because remember, the Forest Service did talk about that. They said that education and you know, volunteer efforts can really help them in, you know, rather than just having their law enforcement rangers go out and issue citations.
Right.
They were looking for some volunteer efforts to work
this
with
is
them on
Harriet.
that.
I live right out by those Cinder Hills, and it's both dangerous and noisy, and it creates dust, and people, kids get killed out there on the holidays all the time because they let them ride the or drive the those machines, and they tip over because it's on
Right.
school. So it's dangerous. There seems to be a group of people who just don't see danger in any of that. And I think signs would be, but I think on big weekends, we ought to have volunteer corps at those. It's a one entrance. You have to go through one driveway. I mean, so you could stop every car and give them a safety brochure on big holiday weekends. Now, that's policy. But is it too minute?
Well, that's what this policy was getting at without actually, lining out a volunteer program.
Yeah.
But if it's in the plan and it does seem like it has traction with the community, then I know the Forest Service would be very happy to have a group of noise volunteers.
It would help to have speed limit signs posted. I remember the Forest Service gentleman saying that they do have a designated speed limit for the forest, and in some places it might need to be a deskless speed.
Yeah. They ignore and shoot every sign.
Right. And I think we've got additional policies in other sections that deal with speed limits. Remember, this is focused on natural quiet here.
Yeah, public safety is where I think some of that stuff really belongs.
Right.
For noise, though, the razors, when they're going really fast, and the motorcycles, when they go really fast, they're a lot louder than they are when they're going slow.
Understood.
Yeah, Melissa, this is Russell Weedman. I have something I wanted to bring to your attention if I could have just a minute.
Is it related to these policies, Russell?
Yes, it's related to the quiet. And since you were talking about the train whistles and things like that, there may be other places than on 89 that are in the area plan, but I'm not sure. But if you live on 89 and you live at, say, out by where Harriet lives, or Brandis Way, out in that area, or down by a Silver Saddle store, the engine brakes that the trucks use are extremely loud and annoying. And unless you've lived around an area like that and experienced, you might not be aware of it, but it's way more common, and it sounds as loud as a train whistle easily, or a train horn. And it's something that at least should be thought. I don't know how it would work into this policy, but they are extremely destroying to the peace and quiet of an area where
Oh, heaven fucking forbid.
Hello, can you please mute your phone, please? We've got some additional chatter going on.
Hey, Russell, this is Rob. I think what you're talking about are commonly referred to as Jake brakes, or engine exhaust brakes.
Yeah, that's right. It's the engine brake on the big semis.
Right. And
where I live, I can barely hear the trucks many times at all. And then when the engine brake or that Jake brake comes on, it might be 20 times as loud as it was without it. And that is something that, they do have brakes on the truck. It's something in a lot of areas. They do have signs out on the highways that tell the truckers to not use the engine brakes. And I heard somebody bring it up at a meeting, not someone on the committee, but just someone, they had mentioned it around the Silver Saddle store. And I heard it there when I was filling gas out there. And it's a red light, and you're coming down a little hill from the south side by Silver Saddle. And those trucks would use that engine brake or Jake brake. And it was so loud, it was unbelievable for the people that live right there. It's something that should be addressed, in my opinion.
Thanks for bringing that up, Russell. And, I do want to just, remind everybody, we can certainly add a policy in the area plan. And I think this third policy is something that the area plan can actually have an impact on. I'm not sure about, working with ADOT, for instance, on a no brake zone, no engine brake zone. That, I think that's what you're suggesting. Is that basically what you're getting at, Russell?
Oh, yeah, that's exactly
Yeah.
what I'm getting at, because that's the
So,
only way it could be put into effect is
sure.
maybe.
So what I'm hearing then is a suggestion for another policy that addresses engine braking, but that's going to be an ADOT call.
Yeah.
It's not going to be, the county is not going to be able to install signs, for instance, on that.
No, I knew that the county wouldn't be able to, but it's something where with the power the county has, they can put a little pressure on ADOT because it's something that's not that hard to do. But anyway, I just want.
Thanks for bringing that up. Yeah.
Well,
And
thank you.
I'm not going to get the exact wording here right now, but I'm going to talk to Dave Wessel about that because I think he might be able to help.
Well, keep it in mind.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then and what we're not seeing, I've got the track changes on, everybody. So it's just, I've got the simple markup view, so we don't have to look at all the red lines. But the fourth policy, or rather what would be fourth is impacts of noise pollution should be an important factor to be considered for any actions requiring commission or board approval. Projects should not be allowed that adversely contribute to noise pollution or that are detrimental to the quiet rural nature of the area. The county is encouraged to adopt standards to measure noise impacts, including noise levels, time of day, impacts, etc. And I know, and there have been projects that the Planning and Zoning Commission have dealt with in regard to noise impacts. So this policy seemed to work in terms of for projects that do need commission or board approval.
A good introduction here, Melissa. Thank you. And I'd like to make a comment. The last sentence where it says the county is encouraged to adopt standards to measure. After the word measure, I think it would be appropriate to say measure and regulate. I don't want to get into a discussion about the difference between statute and regulation here. Suffice to say that the fact that we have a zoning ordinance, that zoning ordinance constitutes regulation, and that is where we address these issues. Statute enables us to create a zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance itself is regulation, and that's why I think it's important to state that here. The other thing, I don't know whether it would be best to be very specific and say the Planning and Zoning Commission or Board of Supervisors.
Okay, thank you.
Sentence. But that is being very specific, and I think that's required here.
Thank you, John.
You bet.
Okay. Can we move on to the dark skies and lighting?
Let's.
All right, and just so you know that I have asked Mark Stento to review these for us. I haven't heard back from him. So, and I know that John Ruggles will have some comments on these, but remember Mark Stento is the dark sky lighting specialist with the city, and it's a position, it's a city position, but he's also working with the county on doing enforcement, so.
Yes, and I would like to say that Mark is enforcement, and those of us on the, staff, P&Z and Board of Supervisors create what he has to enforce. You know, I haven't had a chance until now to look at these, but I may have some comments as we look at them as we go on. Thanks.
Okay, great. So 2 goals for dark skies and lighting. Number 1, dark night skies and the dark night landscape are preserved by minimizing the amount of outdoor light. And number 2, glare and visibility of lights off the property where they are installed is minimized. So those seem to be 2
I would
important
suggest in
goals.
item 1, Melissa, that outdoor light should maybe be better defined as maybe man-made or non-natural, so that we recognize we're really focusing on what we can control.
Well, one of the things is that those, a lot of the stuff should be in the dark skies regulations. And yeah, things like, you know, I've gone through some of that stuff, and so if right now I'm in a homeowner association, they're not particularly interested in telling people that they need to change their lighting because of dark skies. But that's neither here nor there. But there are, if they follow the rules of dark sky regulations, then all of this stuff is taken care of.
Well, I'd like to comment on that, that statement is precisely what the lighting ordinance is all about. And two, minimizing the amount of outdoor light is one of the things that is being addressed in the update to the zoning ordinance, which is driven by the joint land use study. And there is funding for that in place right now. But yeah, it's outdoor lighting really. Wouldn't hurt to add that. That makes it kind of specific about what we're dealing with.
What was just typed in there about minimizing the number, the amount of fixtures, there are fixtures that are called that are used for dark skies lighting. And you could have those, I don't know why you need to reduce them. I put them on my house. So I'm compliant with dark sky.
Not lighting fixtures, it's the amount of artificially produced light.
Okay.
However it is created.
Yeah, I agree with Rob. It's not the fixtures, it's the lumens.
Okay, how's
Well,
that? The amount of artificial outdoor light?
Actually, you're all correct about that. When you start talking about fixtures, that's a little more detailed policy, and it is addressed and will be addressed even more thoroughly in the update to the zoning or the zoning ordinance for lighting coming up.
And then these goals and the policies would reiterate that. If we look at the policies, then some of these were existing policies that were in the natural environment and open space section of your current plan, but they seem to fit better under community character. So that's why they're here. And did you have any other thoughts on these two goals?
Yeah, goal number 2, what that is in actuality and in ordinance most places is light trespass.
Okay.
Light trespass onto adjacent property should be minimized, or I don't know, we might be able to refine that wording a little bit. Or adjacent properties, plural.
Can we bring in the word shields? Because I sit here and look at my neighbor and have for 30 years, she's got a light on her barn and she's reduced the size because I've complained, and it is now legal, whatever the size is, but it doesn't, eliminate the fact that the lights blink out from her barn up to where I live. And that takes out the entire part of the night sky.
That's light trespass. That's exactly
Yeah.
what John just described.
Yeah.
And that's addressed in the ordinance and is still going to be addressed, I hope, in greater detail in the upcoming revisions.
Are they going to establish some penalties for people who literally tell you to take a hike?
Well, that's up to community development and how willing you are
Yes.
to complain
Yeah.
about it.
All right.
Choose your battles carefully sometimes is all
I'm very careful.
Okay.
Melissa, you're one of our new code enforcement officers now, right? So we can send Melissa out there to take care of it.
Ooh, well, I already sick the dark skies on this neighbor, and she said, I mean, the light is in whatever the maximum is, but it doesn't do a thing to cut down the actual light that comes up here. So it flows north, I guess.
Okay.
Well, we do have really great assistance now with Mark Stento, and he will be, I think his first priority is working on the commercial lighting and tracking down what is not compliant, and that's going to help the observatories. I do believe he's also taking an approach to residential, and will be working with residences that are not in compliance either, because technically they do fall under the zoning ordinance. So there is that compliance aspect. But John's right, Harriet, if you've got a light trespass issue that's currently going on, we can look into that. I can talk to you offline about that a little bit more.
This is Dave. Just maybe a question, Dave Wessel, question or comment on goal 1. Not just the lumens are important, which would be the amount of light, but also the spectrum, where they really want to reduce the amount of blue light and get down to more that yellow-orange spectrum. Is that something that you want to address in that goal?
Actually, I'd like to make a comment on that. That is something that is going to be addressed in the update to the lighting ordinance. I'm very cognizant of that and work with Chris Luganbuehl and also the Navy on this to a pretty great extent. And yes, your concerns have been heard, I can assure you, quite some time ago. And the go forward, I think, will answer those. Getting rid of not just blue light, but green light also, which contributes to sky glow. And that's something that provides a substantial problem for optical observation, which is what the Naval Observatory relies on.
John, what is the term then? If the amount of light are lumens, what would be the technical term for color then?
Well, that's
wavelength.
A little difficult to describe. It would be limitation of actually what it is limitation within the spectral power output of the light. But that is specified, that is going to be specified rather closely in the upcoming update to the lighting ordinance. That's getting a little too specific for a goal right here.
For a goal here, okay.
Other than saying compliance with the section 4.3 of the zoning code is what you're aiming at.
Right, and remember that this, the policies and the goal in the area plan are going to be strongly supported in this case by the zoning ordinance. And the zoning ordinance will get into much more detail than this needs to here.
Yeah, the term I was looking for was the spectral power distribution of the light. How's that?
Oh yeah, that was on the tip of my tongue, John.
Yeah, I kind of thought so. It's a term that should resonate with everybody here, right?
How about changing the wording to minimizing the amount and type of outdoor light, and that type could include the spectrum?
That's a good overall policy statement.
Okay, good job.
Amount and type.
Yep.
Keep it simple.
Okay.
Moving on.
Yep. Okay, so we've got these 2 goals, and then these policies again. Our lighting expert is reviewing these for us, but I'll just read them quickly. Number 1, proactive enforcement of the lighting ordinance for commercial properties is strongly supported. Enforcement.
Why just commercial? Why would we?
Well, I think the first one, there's a second one that deals with residential.
Oh, okay.
So they were separated. Proactive enforcement of the lighting ordinance for commercial properties is strongly supported. Enforcement of the lighting ordinance on residential properties is encouraged and should be supplemented by outreach and education. So that gets to the piece about the commercial, and my understanding is that the commercial properties will be dealt with more in the compliance realm with the new studies that will be coming out, and residential will be also addressed, but on more of a voluntary compliance level. So
quick
ahead.
Comment on that, Melissa. It's wise to emphasize commercial because they are allowed so much more lighting than residential properties are. And the Navy study indicated residential properties posed only 10% of the lighting problem that we will see in the future, or actually right now.
But if we're looking at this as a plan that's going to be in effect for 10 to 20 years, I guess I'm fine with it separating them out. If lighting
Yeah.
is a problem, we should treat everyone the same. We shouldn't take sides and designate, one person or group or entity as more evil or less. We should enforce the law equally across the board and encourage it.
Or you can just, again, very simply put, say that compliance with the section 4.3 of the zoning code is what we're after, what we're looking at, because that deals, of course, with all lighting, commercial or residential.
One of the things I'd like to focus on education here. I've been through several of these things, and people just don't understand how they think if they put more light in their backyard, it's going to make them see better, but it doesn't. It's just the opposite. It's where the light is and how. So if you do enough education, people can save a lot of money by not putting so much light out there. So I want to make sure education stays in here somewhere.
Some of our lighting issues are because we think that if we put lights on our houses, we won't have people who drive up our driveways or come over into our yards thinking it's part of the national forest and sort of bumping into our houses. So a lot of people have lights outside around their houses, mainly to keep away, because we're right on the forest. That you remember where we are, we're right on the forest, that people just assume they don't see our houses apparently and just come right up to the house. And
I understand that, and some education shows what kind of light to use, right, and where to focus them rather than just more lights. But it doesn't say you shouldn't put any lights up.
Yeah. Yeah.
And again, so this policy 5 says an active education program for residents should be undertaken and incentives provided if possible. Now there's a question of who would do this. We have one lighting specialist and he's quite busy, but I do remember from his presentation that education is part of his responsibility. So, that's an ongoing effort. Also, this can be, there are community groups that could undertake this as well, because dark skies are such an important value for not just your area plan, but for the entire county, for so many reasons.
You've got an intern.
We have an, okay, Jacob, there you go. You've got a job. And so there's a policy in there where education is referenced. And then back to number 1, where it talks separately about commercial and residential. We haven't really finished this discussion because, again, this talks about outreach and education for residential properties, because it is my understanding that the commercial properties and the those properties that are not in compliance with the code will be addressed with first, because they have, as John mentioned, they have a bigger impact. They have more light, and a lot of times they're just putting out more lumens than the residential properties. Although I'm sure I'm sure there are properties that you all know about that have a fair amount of lighting as well that are residential. So
that's something as simple as a motion detector could make a huge difference with.
Right. So again, there's this joint city-county effort, and that's number 2. The area plan supports efforts to create, adopt, and continuously update a joint city and county lighting ordinance. That is an effort that has funding and is underway. So this is just underscoring the importance of that. And when that comes into play, when that's adopted by the zoning ordinance, then that will apply to your area plan. So these policies merely back that up, if that makes sense.
Well, it's great to get the ordinances as long as people know about it. So I think education belongs in there somewhere.
Okay.
Dave, are you satisfied with the way that education is addressed in item number 5? Dave?
Yeah, I just get into unmute here. Yeah, that's worthwhile, but people who say no are probably just going to say no matter what. But At that point, then you might want to talk about enforcement.
Right, and there would be enforcement available for that. And number 4 then specifically speaks to what Harriet was raising about residential property owners should install only the minimum outdoor lighting necessary for utility and security purposes. And it does get into some specifics here. Lighting design should consider proper shielding, lumen standards, lighting technology, and be installed to prevent glare and light trespass on a neighboring properties. Now, this is to some degree duplicating what will be in the code. So I believe a lot of this is existing policy.
That you're absolutely right.
Right.
When you look at that, and even a term like lumen standards is a misnomer. Just on top of that,
it seems like this last sentence actually should be deleted because the zoning ordinance will address
that
what the proper shielding, the lumens, et cetera, are, because that continually will be changing.
That would work rather well, because you're exactly right about that last sentence being covered in the zoning ordinance, in the lighting ordinance.
So let me ask, would it be well to reference the lighting ordinance at that point?
I think it would be worthwhile.
Yeah.
Referencing the lighting ordinance ought to be done in the goal. That's a goal.
Yeah, that's true, Rob. You are correct.
This is Dave. Can I maybe make a higher level comment here? You're at risk of becoming circular. These are kind of your policy statements. Somebody made the point earlier. You got statute and you got regulation. You've got policy statements here that are somewhat akin to statute that should inform your regulation, which is the zoning code. And so if you just say, hey, support the zoning code, and then somebody changes the zoning code, they have no policy guidance on whether they should change it or not. So you want to be careful about getting circular here in terms of your policy and regulation.
Yeah, I'll comment on that. I've given exactly this sort of thing some thought too. And at this point, considering that the zoning code can change, even the section you reference may change sometime in the future if it's reformatted within the next 20 years, which could happen and has with other aspects of the code. So in accordance with the county lighting code would be probably the easiest way to address that, or words similar to that.
In the goals you're suggesting.
Yeah. Yeah, conformance with the requirements of the county lighting code. That's how we generally refer to it.
And then take the rest out.
And that does it without the specificity that would give you rather circular goals and policies here.
Okay. We've already agreed, everyone, I think, likes number 5.
That'll do.
I'll turn this on real quick. So number 6, sorry, is something that was another very almost code specific policy, requirements for full shielding. That's already been done. So that was just duplicating what's already in our zoning ordinance. So I recommended taking that out.
Okay.
Okay.
Good.
Sorry.
Back up. Yeah.
Back up here. And then this number 7, commercial storefronts with ground to roof glass windows providing visibility into the illuminated interior should not be allowed in the planning area. That's a question I do actually have for our lighting specialist, because I think that interior glow is being considered with the lighting ordinance, but I'm not sure. So I did want some feedback from him on this. Do you have anything to add, John?
Yeah, I'm going to say that, to my knowledge, right now, in other jurisdictions, specifically Western Europe, where this has been brought to regulators' attention, that we don't really have a good way of dealing with it, except as a part of the design review. And we have done this with CUPs, where we have required shading and other methods of controlling that when it has come up. But I don't think that we right now have anywhere a good definition of, or a good regulatory statement about how to specify this exactly.
Perhaps we need to look at the DRO then.
The
And this might,
DRO is a good way to do it. We've done that with DROs, and we've addressed it with use permits as well.
But John, this isn't talking about an amount of light. This is talking about a type of construction.
Yes, and that is right now the only good way to either quantify the light and say this is acceptable or what is not acceptable. This was brought up at the Lighting International Dark Sky Association conference about 2 years ago. There was and this has been brought up in Germany. And to my knowledge, the only way that we can do it right now that is effective is through the DRO, through a use permit, through conditional zoning, and other means like that. But to encourage evaluating it, it is a really good policy here.
Yeah, this is Dave. If I could make a suggestion, talking instead of not allowing it, maybe talking. It sounds like you already have a process for mitigating it through, maybe audings or other things. So maybe you want to talk about mitigating that, and then you can look at the DRO to develop the tools to mitigate.
I'll go along with Dave on this. That's a very, very good suggestion. Mitigation is the strategy that we've used at the Planning and Zoning Commission, and also working with staff on this in the past.
John Ruggles, this is Liz.
Yeah.
We're talking right here in number 6 on commercial storefronts, but I just had someone who built a new house across, like an acre from me, and they did ceiling to floor lighting on all the windows in their front. Is that a residential zoning thing too, and they just missed it? Or is this just for commercial and it's not in the code yet for residential?
Well, it all depends, but considering where we're at, that's one, residential, and two, maybe it would be better if you were to give me a call.
Okay.
Discussion.
I just want to know, do we have something for residential that when people do lighting head to toe, because it just happened? I didn't know. So I didn't know if we should put that in here or not.
Yes, there are requirements.
Okay.
That do govern that.
Okay, but we just didn't address it in this thing. Okay, not residential, and it's just commercial.
so I just updated this with to say lighting from commercial storefronts with ground to roof glass windows providing visibility into the illuminated store interior should be mitigated. And then we can look at specific suggestions in the DRO for how to mitigate that.
I think the word you are looking for is light trespass, which is technically what it is. Light trespass from commercial storefronts.
Got it. Okay.
From the light trespass from the interior of commercial storefronts.
Why are we limiting it to commercial storefronts?
Is there?
Because that's something that we can regulate, or at least work with the applicant on a use permit, conditional zoning, design review.
Is lighting addressed in the permitting process either for new residential, commercial, or remodeling?
It is for commercial, and we don't require a lighting permit for residential.
Thank you. That was my question to John. Thank you, Bernice, for putting it so beautifully. Thank you, dear.
Thanks.
Thanks, Bernice.
But yes, commercial properties have to have a lighting permit.
Maybe
Hey,
we have to
everyone,
look at
this
it for
is
residential too.
Hey, Melissa, this is Jess. I might be able to, I hope this might help, but the most recent cases that we've been concerned with light trespass from the interior of a building haven't been commercial. So I would concur with Rob here, is singling out commercial is probably not what you want to do. I would just say lighting trespass from interior of buildings with large windows should be mitigated. And the concern about the concept of window providing visibility to the illuminated store interior, I don't think that's maybe necessarily helpful for a policy statement. I think maybe the policy is driving towards, hey, let's just minimize light trespass from the interior of windows from the interiors of buildings with large windows.
Thanks,
John,
Jess.
do you think that helps?
How does that read?
I think that's an excellent way of stating this as a policy, because that's essentially what we've been adhering to at planning and zoning and working with staff on this.
Good job, you guys. So this would read light trespass from the interior of buildings with large windows should be mitigated.
That sums it up rather well. Thank you, Jess.
Sounds good.
Less is always more.
Shall be mitigated.
Okay, shall we move on then to the, now I'm going to do a time check. It's
I just have one
6:52.
comment. What about spotlights in small windows?
Yeah. And spotlights, period.
Well, we can't really, what about this to the, there are always going to be exceptions, and the intent here is to try to mitigate it as best we can.
Does light trespass capture that?
It sure does.
Okay, Melissa, let's move on.
Okay, all right. Did you want to do a time check? It's 6:53, and I apparently overly optimistic hope was that we could get through all of these 4 sections. So we will get through this one. Did we need a break?
Would anyone like to take 5 minutes? Hearing no one, let's continue on.
Okay. All right, we'll continue on then. So the next goal was community design, neighborhood preservation goal. And this was, again, existing goal that was moved from a neighborhood and community chapter into the community character, culture, and history chapter. So this says the goal is special characteristics of the existing neighborhoods are preserved. 1 goal and 2 policies. Neighborhood preservation policies. Development proposals should be considered in the context of existing neighborhood character and should be only approved if compatible with and not detrimental to such character. This is an existing policy.
Okay.
And number 2, public input from the neighborhood should be strongly considered to define existing neighborhood character and the appropriateness of development proposals. Now, number 2, public input is definitely solicited for projects that require planning commission and or the board of supervisors approval. So again, conditional use permits, rezonings, and subdivisions. If there is a commercial property that's building a use permitted by right, then there would not necessarily be public input on that, except through the design review overlay. So in this case, then remember your area plan has an existing design review standards, and so that does trigger a review by the Planning and Zoning Commission. So actually this policy is very appropriate. It's a bit redundant to the zoning code, but it just underscores that there is public input taken on those projects.
It's a good reminder for us.
Mm-hmm. Any comments on these?
Melissa, just one quick thought. I have seen in a number of cases, including my recent experience, that the county required notification, public notification perimeters may not be as large as the neighbors felt they should have been.
I apologize.
it's probably outside the scope of this document, and so correct me if that's the case, to address something like that. So for instance, I believe it can be as small as a 300-foot radius around your property.
That's the minimum required
Yeah.
by code.
And a lot of things impact beyond 300 feet. So when we're talking about community input here and how it should be considered, we won't get it if we don't notify them of it, of the potential for it. So this probably isn't the right place to put that. Thoughts?
Well, this is under community character, so that's something that would be determined. It's a custom radius that's determined with each project with a minimum of 300 feet. So it is.
So that decision is made by staff based on their best opinions and perhaps input from an area plan.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, Melissa, don't we, I think we're addressing that in the land use planning goals and policies.
That has come up there, and there is somewhat, there is a lot of overlap sometimes between these sections. So I think that this is still under neighborhood preservation because it speaks to community character.
Yeah, either one works well. And I'd like to add one thing that in my time on the Planning and Zoning Commission, the county has done quite an effort to expand the notification area relative to where it was, say, 9 or 10 years ago, and often really exceeds what the statutory requirements are. But stating it here won't hurt.
Could we add on number 2, expanded public input? Add the word expanded in front?
How do you define that, Bernice?
Well, beyond the 300 feet, I've got, I mentioned before that I had an experience in our neighborhood where they had a public meeting and only invited people within 300 feet, even though people beyond 300 feet had to maintain their road. And also I've talked to people on the other side of town in the unincorporated areas of the county that were really disappointed that they were not able to give input on developments that were clearly, they were beyond the 300 feet. And they felt like, they almost didn't even know about it. So I think that we ought to, if you're on an unimproved county road that you maintain, and somebody wants to put something on your road that they drive by your house every day, you need to know. And if you're beyond 300 feet, you still need to know to give input.
So could we make a policy statement that encouraged staff to use broad strokes when defining the public input for changes that require approvals?
I'll add something to that. Yes, and being on the Planning and Zoning Commission, it would give me the ability to kind of rake staff over the coals if there is perhaps too small an area of notification when we make decisions. Just my sense of humor on that.
I like that. So let's get some ideas here as far as broad strokes. What are your thoughts here?
I want to raise my hand and I don't see a place. It's Harriet. I was wondering, just for when we talk about educating and informing, do we send notices of these kinds of policies at all levels, certainly the regional plan, to realtors, so that when they're showing people properties, they say, now you can buy this property, but here are the restrictions that will go with it, and be and make the people who buy the property understand when they come here from downtown Cincinnati, they tend to think they can do any damn thing they want because it's wide open spaces in their eyes. And do we sort of work with realtors to have them school people when they buy property out here?
Well, that's a great question here. I know that community development has put on contractor trainings, and that has focused, I think, more often on the building code side of things, when there are building code updates. We have talked about doing things like, maybe doing a Coconino Planning Academy that people could join in. So there are some ideas like that, but and certainly we are connected with a number of realtor groups, and obviously we work with realtors all the time to help them understand our zoning ordinance. I don't recall a specific effort, although there have been certain sections of the zoning ordinance where I know the realtor groups were specifically brought in, so they all should certainly be aware of what's in the county zoning ordinance, because that's
And we're
part of
talking
what they
about
do.
neighborhood character here as well in our planning. But people move here, and if they don't know what our neighborhood standards are or our neighborhood attitudes are, we had a couple move in, and the first thing they did was build a track for their 16-year-old to have those what are they? The little cars.
Yep. So
and they had a little racetrack for them that was so cute, except the dust clouds and the noise and everything in the middle of right in the middle of 5 houses. And they were shocked that we were upset. So we just wondered, this was within 2 weeks of their moving in, and everybody was furious.
Well, that's something to keep in mind. I'm not exactly sure where that would fit in.
I'm just thinking notification when we get through with this, if we send it to the realtors and said, note that this is what we've decided about our neighborhoods. Keep your customers informed.
Hey, I really like that idea. This is Brian, and I'm wondering if that goes into an entirely different section, but it is to encourage the county to best educate real estate and other individuals which interact with newcomers. I'll say it that way, but that's not the way to say it in the policy. But I think that that's a different goal. I don't think that's a policy here. It might go into community character, but I think that that's a goal for the community character. That makes sense?
The issue
I
that I
just
have
think
with
it's important to preserving neighborhood character is what I'm saying. And I don't, wherever we do it, we need to tell people the neighborhood character is quiet, preservation of the wildlife, and keeping the trees intact. And the people move here and decide they can turn it into a drag strip. Is different.
So
Harriet,
Dave, what were you going to add, Dave?
Can I, just for a second, Harriet, what you're talking about is already done in some respects. So for instance, CCNRs, they have to be notified of any CCNRs that apply to a property before they can purchase it. And that's done in the process of the title company searches and all that kind of stuff. But that's by law, and that's not something that this document could do.
Okay.
So I think it's outside the scope of what we could do, other than in ways that we could encourage education. We could add it there.
That's where I would be grateful for any place.
So a couple things to think about. Remember, there are separate CCNRs, right? And that's individual to subdivisions and properties. The county does not distribute information on those. We don't even have information. That is the responsibility of a realtor to bring CCNRs to the attention of a buyer. But, things like the county zoning ordinance is something that could be an educational outreach effort. I'm not 100% sure how we can craft that.
Jacob's going to be busy.
I'm sorry?
Jacob will be busy.
Well, and he's got like 3 months with us. So, right. But what I'm going to, Harry, if you don't mind, would you mind just putting that idea in an email and sending it so that we can fit this in and we can continue to move on here. But that's a good idea to fit in, but we need to really look at, refining the language a bit.
Yeah.
That would be great. Do you mind doing that?
I'm writing my note. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Did Dave Browning, I heard you talking.
Yeah, I have Item number 2, the one we said public input from the
Yes,
neighborhood.
we haven't finished that one
This
yet.
should be strongly considered, but if you only don't invite very many people from the neighborhood, you can strongly consider it and still not get what you need. So we need to have something that says that and I don't have the right words, but something that, that makes sure that enough of the public gets included. See what I'm saying?
Perhaps some words, Melissa, that reflect the fact that because we're a rural neighborhood, that 300-foot minimum really isn't applicable, and we need to expand that significantly to incorporate, all those that may be impacted within some form of reason. I don't want to make, a 1 mile perimeter or something like that is not reasonable.
Yeah, I
But
don't think you want to give a number here. I said
No.
I added wide public input.
How about
me.
expanded public?
Melissa,
How
how
about
about wide,
expanded public input?
how about expanded public input beyond that required by statute?
Excellent.
Yeah. There we go.
Or you could say well beyond.
Yeah.
I know.
Wide and well, and all these undefined terms that nobody's gonna.
Well, I know how that affected Rob Wilson during his use permit hearing. I heard a lot about it.
Yeah. No, never mind.
Okay.
Hi, team. This is Jay. I think we need to be a little bit careful with this one. State statute is explicit with regards to 300 feet. Our zoning ordinance allows us to determine a undetermined distance from that, but I just want to have a little caution there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jay.
Thanks, Melissa.
Okay, comment to Jay. Policy document, it says strongly encouraged. I think that we at P&Z, staff and the county attorney's office could live with that. Since, sometimes we make decisions that don't exactly fit with that too.
Yeah, thanks, Commissioner Ruggles. You're right.
Okay,
Maybe
let's move on then. I think we've got that.
I think. Sorry, Dave, you were saying something?
Yeah, beyond that, instead of required by statute, it just says beyond the required minimum.
Or perhaps in accordance with the zoning ordinance, which gives us the flexibility.
Beyond that required by the zoning ordinance?
Yeah.
Being a guiding document, shouldn't the area plan be a guiding document for the formation of new revisions of the zoning ordinance?
Not if it's inconsistent with state statute.
Well, I think we've established that we go beyond state statute at times.
We do, per the discretion given to us in the zoning ordinance. And that's the document that's adopted by ordinance. So that's the law. So I think to tie the area plan with the zoning ordinance could be prudent.
This is David Wessel. Can I make a suggestion?
Go ahead.
Strive to set public notice limits commensurate with the anticipated impacts of a development. Somebody mentioned, trips on their road. Like, okay, well, that would be the impacts of that development or trips on that road. So you'd say, okay, everybody on that road. You could talk about light trespass and potential light trespass. So if you just do some kind of assessment of the impacts or potential impacts and then notice people accordingly, that gives perhaps a little more guidance on what that should look like.
Well, I think that is what staff does already in going beyond the statutorily required minimum notification boundary.
And I will point out, this policy says should be strongly considered. It's not a shall. And then this would be conducted on a case-by-case basis based on where it is. You know, if there's a property that's abutting Forest Service land and there's nothing beyond it, then, you know, the 300-foot boundary may well be appropriate, right? If it's a property right on 89 and there are 100 houses around it, that's a different matter. So, you know, it really does need to be custom to the individual situation.
There could also be something in the forest, like the end of South Coachfield Road where it goes into the forest. And South Coachfield Road is a privately maintained road. So anything going into that forest is on the privately maintained dirt road and putting a lot of traffic on that.
Right. So I think this
neighbors, it will be affected.
Right. And so, I mean, that's another scenario. So I think this policy, and we can certainly look at this again, and we will have our legal staff review these. So, you know, that's another step in the process, is to have their eyes on this to make sure we are not getting into, you know, crossing into some, a situation where we could be at risk, as Jay suggested. So I would recommend that we move on from this. I think we've captured the intent. Are you all comfortable with that?
Yeah, I can go along with what you've got right now.
Okay, great. So we have a community design goal, and just a note to everybody that design is implemented by the design review guidelines chapter, and that's going to be a separate review. So there are going to be there currently are specific guidelines in that chapter, and we'll be looking at them separately. So the goal, though, is that design residential development to preserve the character of Doney Park. And you know, I do apologize. It looks like we need to, I've got this in here twice. So there are a couple goals, but we'll format this differently when we get to the final document. But so the first goal is design residential development to preserve the rural character of Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood. 2 policies with that. Policy 1, new residential development should create a connected and safe community by an integrated, signed, and well-planned trail system. Now, this is a bit redundant to the section that will be dealing the transportation section, as well as we have the natural environment, open space, parks, trails, and recreation system, or rather a section. So there is overlap, but I think that's okay. You know, a lot of these reinforce the other. So I don't believe that this is inappropriate here. The second policy would be open space and forest access should be a priority when designing projects adjacent to Coconino National Forest. And now remember, you know, the National Forest needs to weigh in on access onto their land. So there have been cases where, you know, they've kind of looked at a project and said, no, it's not really appropriate for a new access point here. So we work directly with them when it comes to new developments and whether or not to provide direct access, and really use their guidance based on their management plans. So that was the goal 1 under community design. Any thoughts or comments on these?
I come from an area where we, well, I came from San Diego and I worked on the Pacific Crest Trail when it was being developed. And the Board of Supervisors in San Diego were able to give people liability releases from any liability that would be incurred by allowing an easement for the trail, and also gave them a break on their property taxes. Would that be something?
Well, we're going to, so we have more specific policies and goals related to trails in the other chapter.
Okay.
Melissa, this is Brian. Let me comment on policy 1. New residential development should create a connected and safe community. Is this by an integrated, signed, and well-planned trail system? I think the objective there is to create a connected and safe community, and the integrated, signed, and well-planned trail system is an example, isn't it?
I believe this is an existing policy, so I think you're you're right in terms of actually understanding how this was written and what the intent was. Yeah, I think your goal, your policy is to create a connected and safe community. And this is one example of how to do that.
I think this is something that is a part of the subdivision ordinance when you look at it.
Mm-hmm. And it could be underscored here as well.
Yeah, and that's one of the things in the design that is required, essentially.
Okay, my comment is, I'm wondering if you want to say with the example of an integrated, signed and well-planned system, trail system. Because I think you're limiting your connected and safe community by giving that one example, by making that one statement rather, as opposed to making an example.
And I just added in, for example.
Good way of stating it.
I like that.
Okay.
So a connected and safe community, how does a trail make a community safe?
So you don't have to walk in the middle of the street to get somewhere?
Thank you, Rob. I see that. That's it.
That's what I said. I just don't get that.
I'm not connecting the dots with this one very well. So if I were to read this, just if I were, sitting alone at home reading this statement, I'm not sure what it means. And does new residential development only apply to new subdivisions, or would a lot split that required zoning approval, or even just a new residential home fall under new residential development and require therefore a connected trail?
Right. Well, you're raising a good point, because new residential development that could actually, a
single family home.
I mean, so new residential development that would actually, have the scope to build or to connect to a trail system would be a subdivision. A new single family home or a lot split, we would not require that for a new single family, or just even for a lot split, unless there's some sort of existing easement that needed to be preserved. So this really, it does speak to new residential subdivisions. Right. So I think you're raising a good point. And then, well, I'll put the question back to the group. What does feel like a connected and safe community? Are trails part of your connected community? Trails often do connect neighborhoods, and often trails and sidewalks and pedestrian access and multimodal systems create safety for users.
And all those would fall in the transportation category.
To some degree, this is also, yeah, I mean, like there is some overlap, but this was
Melissa, I think this is addressing something more like pedestrian trails within a developed community. And I think a good example of that is the proposed one in Kachina Village. And we've done this at the community development level and planning and zoning level with other developments like that, regardless of the lot size. Nevertheless, it gives people a way to get around without walking down the middle of the street in the winter, or summer for that matter.
Right. So with that thought, then in this policy, do you have an idea about modifying this?
Well, I think it could stand as it is. I think it's implied in this statement that it is primarily about pedestrian access or equestrian access for that matter, bicycle, non-motorized traffic.
Should create a safe and
connected. Should create a, well.
That's a safe community. Or are you saying not just for example, but for pedestrians, equestrians? Is this where you're going with this, John? I can't spell tonight.
Well, I don't know if we need to be that specific, but if it will clarify it for everyone else, might be a good idea. Pedestrian, equestrian, and bicycle.
Yeah, I want to add something here. Don Howard's a friend, and I remember when we were talking about the Chevron station, the fire department was very in favor of connected and safe communities in order for fire and police and emergency vehicles to have access. And so he was referring to this particular policy as something that the public service people want, and it's from a different angle from what we're looking at, because he was saying we're in a fire zone, that's how we live, and that was what he was thinking, is we get these remote houses like mine stuck out in the woods and the roads aren't good, etc., and you're just going to have your house burned down if you can't figure it out.
How's this then? If we, you know,
as
if
well
we
as
go less specific, new residential subdivisions should create a connected and safe community for pedestrians, equestrians, and bicyclists, as well as emergency response agencies.
that will make Don Howard happy, but I don't, you know, the rest of you, I just saying.
I think we already do this in the zoning ordinance and the.
I don't think this makes sense.
It doesn't make sense, Liz?
Emergency response.
I think we're trying to put too much in
this addressed elsewhere.
Mixing too many things into one thought.
Yes, thank you, Rob. Too much. It's just too much in that one sentence. It's just. I'm just not.
I don't think you need. I don't think you need to make the statement about emergency response agencies, because that is addressed in several other parts of the zoning ordinance. Since we're talking about residential subdivisions, that's definitely where it's addressed.
And I think, and Harry, thanks for your great memory. I think what Don was talking about was encouraging development of alternative access to locations to improve emergency response abilities.
And I'm going to suggest that we hold that thought. We've got an entire chapter dedicated to public safety.
Okay.
Right. We haven't looked at it yet.
That's good.
Yeah. He just
That's
said,
better, because safe community is a whole topic.
Well, and so, but this is community design, right? So community design, remember, bigger picture here, community character, culture, and history. This is your chapter for that. Community design is part of your community character. And this goal, design residential development to preserve the rural character of Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood. Policy 1, new residential subdivisions should create a connected and safe community. We have heard this from the survey. Connections were important and safety is community. This is a pretty broad policy if we leave it in there, but it does get to the essence of what your community has wanted.
How about putting a period after that, after community?
I did. You see, I don't know if you can see it, but I did.
No.
Do that.
It
and
didn't
I
show
have
up.
I've got another suggestion. How about just saying new residential subdivision design should.
Okay.
Design or planning, either one.
Can you see this, Bernice? Do you see the edits?
Yes.
I don't see the edits very well, but I can, yes, I see it now.
Okay.
I'm going off the one that you sent.
Oh yeah, well, so I'm making live edits.
Yes, yeah, I'm looking at both.
Okay, good. Thank you for looking at those. Okay, I think we've got this policy fairly well designed. And then number 2, policy 2, open space and forest access should be a priority when designing projects adjacent to Coconino National Forest. And again, this is a reminder to us to, make sure that we're looking at opportunities there. It may not be a given every time, right? So again, we're going to work with the Forest Service on this because, if there's a new subdivision adjacent to Forest Service, but for whatever reason, they don't have the staff or the capacity to handle a new trail access, then we're probably not going to require that with the subdivision. So we really need to think, I would not put that into this policy, but just so you know, we do work with the Forest Service closely on these.
Melissa, would it make any sense to add maintaining at the beginning of that sentence, since maintenance of those is the number 1 priority, and then somehow adding in there that, incorporating it wherever possible in new development? Because what we've heard from some of the surveys and other folks is, I used to be able to get into the forest, but then this happened and I can't.
How's that? Maintain and incorporate. I'm sorry, it's late. I can't talk or spell. Maintain and incorporate when appropriate open space and forest access when designing projects.
Like that,
Just take out.
the priority, yeah. I mean, obviously it's a priority, it wouldn't be in here.
How does that sound to everybody?
Who's going to maintain?
Well, so maintain means to keep what you've got, right?
That's the way I would read it.
It's not in terms of, you know,
maintenance. It's
right. Uh-huh.
Okay.
It's not like going out and cutting down a fallen tree. It's okay. So then, great. We're moving on, and community design goal. Again, this is another goal, and we'll just have to reformat this. So community design goal 3 would be new commercial, industrial, and mixed-use developments will recognize and embrace Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood's many historic and cultural design influences. And, you know, this is, I think, in terms of a goal, well-written goal, I believe it's existing. The policy that would go with this, future commercial, public, industrial, and mixed use and multifamily residential development shall conform to the Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood Area Plan Design Review Overlay Zone. This is a given because this is part of our zoning ordinance, but this brings to the attention of anyone reading this that the DRO applies. And I just want to make a point that the policy, even though it's referencing multifamily, does not mean multifamily is allowed or would be approved. It's if it comes into play. If you don't state it now in the plan, then you're not going to see the DRO apply to any multifamily development. So it's a precautionary addition, if that makes sense.
How about just a suggestion that is just good grammar, future commercial, public, industrial, take out the word and, mixed use, and then go on to say and.
Perfect.
Family residential. Thank you.
Good catch.
John's still awake.
Okay.
If you want to, you could add after residential, comma, if approved.
Right here. Okay.
Or parents.
Does that feel better? Sound better?
Yeah, at least it gets rid of the possible misinterpretation.
I think it needs to go here.
What if instead
How
of
about, how about this as a suggestion, when approved rather than if?
Okay, when approved, fine, yeah.
I thought we were discouraging multifamily units.
Well, Bernice, that's definitely a conversation we've been tossing around in all the land use discussions. But as I said, this is a given. So only in the sense that if you've got a commercial, public, industrial, mixed use development, it must go through the DRO process, which means that the design goes to the Planning and Zoning Commission for their review and approval. If you do have a multifamily residential development, and we've been talking about this, about what that will look like. And I think we looked at it last week and we'll look at it again tomorrow, that most likely those would be very small scale, that would also need to go to the DRO. If you don't include it here, then it won't go.
Okay, could multifamily be as small as a duplex or an
Yes.
ADU?
Not an ADU, remember, because the accessory dwelling, every residential property is currently allowed an ADU, you know, within certain setbacks and distance factors. So, yeah, no, the ADUs would not be applied to the DRO. The duplex possibly, depending on the zoning, right?
So it could, a duplex would be considered multifamily?
Yes.
Okay.
I'd like to point out one thing here, that essentially what you have between this policy and what's in the zoning ordinance is a de facto discouragement of multifamily residential in places like Doney Park.
This is Dave. I have a question. What doesn't have to go through DRO?
Single family residential.
Okay, so maybe if you just said all development except single family residential.
That's far too logical.
I like that, Dave. It had to be a simpler way to do this. And that's all inclusive, no matter what happens.
I like that a lot too.
Yeah, I can sign up for that. Very good suggestion.
Dave gets a gold star tonight.
And he's...
Boy, I'll tell you, he sure does.
There you go.
Okay. Thanks, Dave. You're hired. Okay. Shall we move on?
Please.
I'm doing a time check, 7:31. So community design and aesthetics goals. And again, these were in your natural environment chapter, moving them here to community character. Natural areas in the environment that help define the rural character of the community are preserved. That's a goal. And the second goal, native vegetation is protected and preserved. So these are existing goals in your current plan. And the policies that go with it, I'm just going to the end. There are 8 policies that go with these 2 goals. Community design and aesthetics.
Up to those goals for just 1 second?
Yep, they're right here. Natural areas in the environment.
Right. I have a proposed third goal.
Mm-hmm.
If we're going to protect native vegetation, shouldn't we also discourage non-native? There are ordinances and things that talk about, non-native invasive plant species. It is a real problem around here.
We have that covered on another one.
Do we?
Yeah.
Okay, never mind then.
Evelyn, remind me where that is.
I don't know. I am too
oh,
tired.
You're right. It is. It's in natural environment. Sorry. Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Never mind.
Okay, so policies, number 1, again, these are your existing policies. The architectural design, signage, and fencing of new commercial developments or redevelopments shall be aesthetically compatible with the rural, meadow, and forest character of the community and natural environment.
Good.
Fairly basic. Number 2, the preservation of scenic views within the community and the visual impression of the community from Highway 89 and towns of Winona should be considerations in the review of any developments requiring Planning and Zoning Commission or Board of Supervisors approval, including requests for variances from lighting, building, and sign requirements. I think this needs work. Because I think that, sorry.
Why do we add anything after Board of Supervisors approval? I mean,
This part.
Just take that out.
That's what I was thinking too. And this speaks specifically to preserving views.
Everybody good with that?
Good to go.
Okay.
Yep.
Number 3, new replacement or utility distribution lines, including power lines of 12 kV. I guess that's kilovolt or less. Fiber optic cables, telephone cables. Who has a telephone? And TV cables should be buried unless conditions such as extensive monolithic bedrock exists that would result in excessive ground disturbance and expense. This might be simplified just by saying new or replacement utility distribution lines should be buried.
Yeah, because I'll tell you, there are distribution lines that exceed the 12 kV limit it is not consistent with federal definitions for power distribution and transmission lines.
Okay.
Just distribution lines will cover it.
Okay.
Melissa, I'm not sure that you need to put such as
Monolithic bedrock.
yeah, I
Yep,
think
that's
it
another
should be
one.
buried unless conditions preclude it.
Okay.
Yep, that was my thinking on this also. Thank you, Brian.
Mm-hmm. You're
And
welcome.
This would only apply then to distribution lines. And so we have a buried distribution line that goes to a pole that has transformers on it that then feeds to houses. That's not our intent here, right?
Well, again, it's a should be,
It's
like
you
to-
know,
Yeah,
because if you leave
we'd
it
like-
general, then if there's an opportunity to bury the lines, that's always better to preserve your scenic view
Right.
sheds.
So why are we limiting this to distribution lines? Shouldn't we say,
Utility lines.
Utility lines.
yeah,
well,
I want to make a comment too. We have very old systems out in the far eastern side, and they fail often because the older lines are all up in the air on old wooden poles. And so I would suggest that maybe we encourage, in words you want to choose, that any future changes require underground burial so that you're not subject to the wind.
Yeah, that does improve reliability when they're underground, as well as preserving your views.
Yeah, we get not only wind, but ice and snow, and it all
Right.
brings down the old lines, and then we're without heat. I put in a generator this spring, so we're out of heat or cooling that often.
So if we just say new or replacement utility lines should be buried
Mm.
unless conditions would result in excessive ground
Nope.
disturbance and expense.
Well, utility, well, I guess that would cover distribution lines then.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
would
because-
cover electric, cable,
I-
communications.
I'm not at all sure that the county, that a statement covering transmission lines, which is an entirely different regulatory territory, should be in there. But yeah, utility, I think, will cover distribution, electrical distribution. So, and I think it's that's also defined in statute. Something I had to look at about 15 years ago. And that is covered in statute. Utilities covers the whole thing. So it's good change.
Great, thank you, everybody. So number 4, and this is something that I need to connect with our Public Works Department on, and also Summit Fire, because what it says incentives for property owners should be provided by the county to clean up trash and fire fuel debris through regular community cleanup days, reduce landfill fees, and additional free landfill days. Now, I do know that Public Works at times conducts free community trash days out in the more rural, further outreach areas. I don't know if they've done it in your area because the landfill is right there.
yes, they do.
They do.
They have, yeah, you get
Okay.
little slips in the mail for a cleanup free
Is that from
dump
the
day.
county or from the city? It's from the county?
From the county for us.
County.
Okay, so that's an active, good policy.
And
Hey.
we're seeing increased dumping in the forest around here, around the Turkey Hills. There's a lot more dumping, and boy, I just don't know what to do. I guess contact the Forest Service and the State Land Department. That's what I'll do.
So, okay, so I'll just double check with Public Works just to make sure they're going to continue with this, right? Does that make sense?
Yep.
Usually they do. They're
Yep.
always at our meetings, and they do it every June. They send out the vouchers in May, and it's just something that, what's his name? DeRoca?
Mark Della Rocca.
Yeah, Della Rocca. He's in charge of that, and it's just something they've been doing for years.
Okay, well, great. Thank you for that. I wasn't 100% sure. So you're giving me a push there.
It seems like we should be considering the expansion of the dump out there too, because I've heard that they're running out of room out there and it's quite a problem.
Last time I talked to them, they said it's good for another 20 years.
Yeah, we did hear that, I think. And
really? Well,
that's
maybe
the same thing I've heard also.
Is that at the level they're at now, or is that with a bunch of development coming up?
I haven't heard about any plans that the city has to expand the landfill, and it is not in the planning area. Just remember that it's adjacent to it, but it's not actually in the planning area.
Right, but it affects the planning area, and having a place to dispose our garbage is really important.
Yeah.
Or we'll see more garbage in the forest.
Well, yeah, that could be a whole different matter, Bernice, honestly, that people are not bothering to take it all the way to the landfill, even though it's right there. But
right.
Yeah, I think I read recently that that they do have a pretty good life on the existing landfill. So I haven't heard any plans about expansion.
Melissa, one other thought on item number 4, we don't address hazmat at all. And it seems like with lithium batteries and all these other things that are coming into our homes, electronics and all that stuff, the average American is creating more and more hazmat than they have in the past. Does that warrant additional coverage here, or, and I'm just tossing that out for the group thought there.
Well, that's a good point. I know that the landfill has a hazmat drop-off center. I'm sure you all have seen that. And
hazmat drop-off is free to everybody. You do not need to pay for hazmat drop-off.
Right. So
only time you have to pay for it is if it's a commercial entity dropping it off.
So maybe a policy in here that encourages proper use of the hazmat facility, or proper disposal of hazmat material, because that's especially sensitive.
Yeah, Rob's made an excellent suggestion, and I'm all behind that.
So it would be added to this policy?
Maybe a separate policy even that specifically addresses the fact that, because it is unique in the fact that there is a free place to drop that off all the time. So, that encourages proper disposal of hazmat through the city hazmat disposal site.
I think that's an education issue, but it's a very good point that you brought up, Rob. Thank you.
Wouldn't hurt to have it as a policy.
Is it what is the name of the landfill?
It's the hazardous waste.
No, but the landfill.
Cinder Lakes.
Cinder
landfill.
Lakes. I was going to say Cinder Hills.
The audacity of the city to put all their trash right in the middle of our neighborhood.
Okay, we can make sure that terminology is correct.
Yeah.
It's a shame that all that beautiful land out there, it's got some of the best real estate out there where the trash is.
Well, Bernice, at some point in 20 years, when that landfill gets capped and reused, you could probably, get some of that.
It's going to be Landfill Mountain.
Yeah.
So let's try to get through the rest of these. It's 7:44, and I did want to talk about schedule. So number 6, what would be number 6 then? Utility poles and towers in the planning area should have a permanent non-reflective dark surface that blends with the dominant elements of the surrounding natural landscape. That seems reasonable.
Hard to argue with that.
Okay, good. Number 7, if residential property owners choose to fence all or part of their property, they are encouraged to install fences of materials that are attractive, meet the rural character of the area, and are wildlife-friendly fencing design.
There's really no point in putting the word attractive in there, is there? Who's going to define that?
Yeah, that's typically in the eye of the beholder, period. Good choice. Take it out.
Okay, it's gone.
Melissa, this is Nikki. I'm a Timberline resident. This is the first instance I've heard us discuss any kind of wildlife friendly preservation. Is there anything else in the plan that I've missed that discusses that?
Hi, Nikki. Not yet. We have a whole chapter on natural environment.
Perfect,
And
thank you.
so that's where there are a lot more policies that are specific to wildlife. Good question. And thanks for joining. So number 8, the area's topographic features should be protected by prohibiting development on ridgelines and steep slopes.
Well, we can't prohibit, but we can discourage.
Well, actually, you can do even better than discourage, I think, given the what's in the zoning ordinance and the subdivision ordinance right now. But prohibiting, no, I can't exactly say it that way. Yep.
Okay.
And we've gone down that route at the P&Z
Okay.
Commission.
All right, number 9, to protect soils, preserve visual quality, and preserve vegetation, developers of all properties, commercial, industrial, and residential, should minimize the disturbance footprint and provide appropriate mitigation. I'm sorry, this does not make sense the way it's written. Should provide appropriate mitigation for new proposals or permitted changes for existing development. So yeah, this seems to be an existing policy, but I don't think that last part makes any sense.
I think it's missing reference to weeds and non-native invasive species. Is the wording we use elsewhere.
Well, isn't it something also when you're saying, this is Liz, protecting soils, so many people scrape their land. Some of them scrape the topsoil and sell it. I've seen
I think
that.
you're right, Liz. It's minimize the disturbance footprint.
Yeah.
Melissa, remember we worked on that. I forget which one it was. I was reading it this afternoon. But it was there was one word, cultivating or something like that, soil, and we we're going to have to change it and look at the wording better.
Was it this? I don't know.
Yeah, it was under, I think it was under air quality, as far as one of the very first policies.
Dust control.
Yeah, and it was it addressed the scraping of the
topsoil.
And that's in our natural environment chapter, right?
Yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, good.
Boy,
Okay.
you guys have good memories.
Protect soil.
So I think that this one, I think Liz is right, that this is what this is getting to minimize the disturbance footprint. So in other words, instead of scraping the entire 2 acres, just
mitigate the soil of what you need. Mitigate the soil or keep the grasslands in the pasture character. I don't know. Footprints of.
No, this works.
Yeah. So sorry, go ahead.
I think that, I was going to say, I think that works very well because by minimizing the disturbance footprint, you minimize invasive weeds.
Correct.
And I wish Sock Best were here from the P&Z Commission to add a few words on this, because that's one of the things he is adamant about when we do anything about this at the P&Z level.
Right, and that's a good point, John. We do address invasive weeds in our natural environment chapter.
Good.
So we get into that further. We're still in community character, and this was the community design and aesthetics. So it doesn't hurt to underscore this, but I think this is actually, now that we've kind of looked at this again, it makes more sense. And
minimizing the disturbance footprint is one of the things that helps tremendously in controlling invasive weeds and other non-native species. So keep it simple, just like it is.
All right, we're good.
Sounds good.
We got through one. So if you guys are okay, I would like to jump back into the PowerPoint really quick.
Yep.
All right, and just do a reality check here with how far we got. All right, here we go. And I do know Rob, there have been several people who have joined us since we did introductions. I don't know if we want to try to meet those people before we sign off for the night. But so we got through community, character, culture, and history. In my optimistic scheduling exercise, I was hoping we would have gotten through the 4 green boxes, which are the 4 chapters that are ready for your review. So we have 3 more that are ready, and I'm confident that our land use growth and development section will be ready soon. So with that, I just wanted to jump ahead to the schedule. We had initially talked about having a virtual open house because we're still in a virtual reality world. You know, the meeting in person is, until the pandemic has settled down, we're not comfortable organizing that. The county is not in a position where we can actually have in-person meetings. So but back to the schedule, we initially talked about having that February 25th. I wanted to jump to the next slide really quick. We can come back to this because what I am thinking we may need to do is have our virtual open house number 1 on March 11th, which would be your regular meeting night. It would be the 2nd Thursday in March. And that might mean that in order to get through the goals and policies review, that we need to meet a couple of more times as a full group to get through all of these. It may even take more than that because, as you can see, we have quite a few more sections to get through so that you are all familiar with the goals and policies in each chapter. So I just wanted to discuss the schedule with you a bit. Like I said, I'm going to contact the subcommittees that have yet to meet so we can get those sections drafted and ready for the full committee. But what is your what are your thoughts then on meeting? Because our next meeting would be February 11th. I put a note in here. We could schedule a second meeting if needed to complete the goals and policies review and to plan for our open house. So I'm going to open this up to you, Rob.
Well, based on our performance this evening, getting through one of the, 9, 10 total topics there, I clearly one more meeting isn't going to be nearly enough to be prepared with solid vision statements and policies and goals. So I think, to be honest, it's probably premature to try to pick a date for a first virtual public meeting until we're maybe 50% through this. I don't know that there's a lot of value in picking a date that we're going to miss.
I mean, I totally agree, because the other thing that we're looking into is doing another mailing. So back to the outreach planning. You know, we did hear with the survey that there was concern that people had not did not know about the survey or did not have enough time. So we're exploring our budget capacity for doing another postcard mailing to announce the open house. So we do want to be really solid on a date for that. But I wanted to put this out there to you all. You know, we had talked with you, and thanks, Brian, for bringing up our anniversary date. It's 1 year from this month that we first started meeting, and you know, we've made great progress. You guys are really working very hard, and you're so committed to this process. We are really appreciative of that. But I do want to kind of move us along here. You know, we are at a phase where we can really, you know, we're doing the work. You guys are diving deep, but it is your choice how much time you've got now to commit to these meetings.
Melissa, let me ask a question real quick. We've got the 4 basic goals. What do I want to say?
The vision statements.
We've got those done.
Yep.
So for the objective of the community meeting, is that to go through the vision statements with the public, or are we going to get down into the rabbit holes with the policies that we've been working on?
I think we should.
Well, I mean, that would be a very, that is the goal. No pun intended there.
Okay.
So we would roll out the vision, right? And so the vision, and then people can comment on the vision. And then with that, see all of these different chapters, or we call them elements, to the plan and the goals and policies that are tied into it. You look at the vision, you go over, you read the, the different sections. And some people, honestly, in open houses, may not be interested in transportation. They could really not, care less, but they may pay a lot of attention to the natural environment section. So that's why it is really nice to have the complete draft ready for people to see, to tie together. And then,
So
go ahead.
what I'm hearing here is that we're going to need more than one open house, because you're not going to get through all of these different goals and policies in one meeting.
So what we've done in the past with these open houses, and we have, it's been different, obviously, because they've been in person. We've created these huge display boards.
Sure.
With everything basically printed out in a fun, attractive format. So it's not just a Word document. And then, people can go around and they can post comments on it, sticky notes, that kind of thing. We can do that virtually. It's not as fun, but we still have a format where people can go in and look at a display board and make comments on it. But we don't do a presentation. We don't go line by line like we've done tonight. But we have everything available for people to review. I mean, this is ultimately your choice. If you feel like it's too much, we could divide it up. And we could do the vision and the goals only, and we could do the policies at a second open house.
Oh, no, I think the visions, the goals, and the policies all need to be tied together in a single meeting. For a
Yeah,
particular.
for continuity and flow, it does work better that way.
And I think that the whole point of doing the open house is to solicit public comment. And I would hope that a fair number of our neighbors are going to participate in those open houses. I would be surprised if a open house could get through more than one vision statement and the associated goals and policies.
Well, one of the beauties of the online format, we can leave the open house open as long as we need to.
What kind of interaction would we be providing?
Well, I've seen a couple of formats. We can have a session where there's a live presentation that we can then record, and then we can have an open question and answer format. I think we can do it on Zoom. We have the capacity where you all then interact with the community and answer questions. They can go in and we've got another platform that they can go in and actually make comments to the documents. And then another open house, we're obviously going to have more than one open house. If we have a second open house, then if we're ready, we can roll out the actual draft plan with chapters.
Would it be possible to have on the county website in our Doney Park, Timberline, Fernwood area that they could go in and review all the documents ahead of time and post comments there if they couldn't make the open house?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And or we could launch the open house and then have the leave it open for comments for a period.
Sounds good.
It wouldn't close. I mean, and that is one advantage to doing the virtual method, is because it's not like we have to have a 3-hour open house. We did this in Belmont and did this at the fire station, and it was really effective in person. We had a large turnout. We had the entire bay at the fire station completely lined up with boards, and people came along and they commented. We did a presentation that we went through in a succinct way, each chapter, if you will, or each element, talked about the vision. So there was probably a 40-minute presentation, and then the rest of the time was basically stations where people could walk around, talk to committee members, talk to staff, look at the goals and policies, write their comments on there, and then we took all those comments, consolidated them, went back to the committee, considered what kind of revisions needed to be made based on those comments, and then put out the revisions in the second open house with the draft. If we need more than one open house, that's, or rather more than two open houses, then you've got that option.
I agree that I think it's going to take a lot more time for us to get through this. And I don't know about anybody else, but I've got other irons in the fire right now, and it's difficult for me to, I'm in other meetings and other commitments. And I would like to try to minimize the number of meetings that we have per week on this. And it's so important that I don't want to miss any of it.
Bernice, I agree with you totally. I think we all have the same type of situation. Melissa, I'm going to ask if it would be possible for you to come up with how shall I say, a more detailed calendar as to how we manage the public meetings, as well as how do we get the subcommittees to then go through the sections of their writing as we did tonight. How do the subcommittees get scheduled out so that they get done in coordination with the public meetings? Because I think we're almost going to have to double up on part of that.
Well, we need to get the subcommittees, the subcommittees need to finish their work before we go out to the public. Right.
Well, not just finish their work, but also this
And
committee
then
to review their work.
Exactly.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we need to get through that. So yeah, I can do that. I mean, I will schedule the subcommittees and then, put that in a calendar form. So then we can see when the full committee can meet to review that work. Is that what you're suggesting, Brian?
Well, what I'm suggesting in the broader picture is that we take one vision and then we get whatever the subcommittees are that fall under that vision. Those subcommittees get theirs done, and then we can review that. And then you could have a meeting with the public, a public meeting to review that one vision.
Well, Brian,
think it's a little more
I would suggest that you look at all the visions together because they do overlap and they
Wow.
complement each other.
Yes. I don't think you should do one.
I get your point. I'm just looking at this as overload for the public, because it's overload for us pretty much too.
But don't you think, Brian, this is Liz, don't you think, Brian, that most people just have their one little section they're really interested in about? Do you think that they are like the people on these subcommittees and on this committee in general that want to know everything? I mean, do ya?
I get your point.
They're going to be.
But we need to get feedback. We got to allow people time to give us feedback on each aspect that we're working on.
I would like to chime in on behalf of Liz here. My experience says she's absolutely right. Typically, people, when they comment on these things, they have a rather narrow agenda that they wish to address, rather than the plan as a whole. And it's I've participated in this for quite some time, and that's my experience with it. Liz is right.
Hey, John, in your experience, have you seen when somebody comes passionately about a particular issue, that passion tends to take a fair amount of time to express?
Yes, it does.
So even if it's just a single issue, a single individual could consume a fair amount of time in their public input.
You bet. And that is typically a bigger problem with pre-pandemic public meetings, unless the person or persons conducting them limit it by time. We go through this all the time at the Planning and Zoning Commission. I can tell you, having an online format like Zoom, I think it limits that somewhat, or it can be limited effectively.
But I'm not sure if we, public comment's very important to me. I
Yes.
hate to be the person that's deciding, I'm sorry, sir or ma'am, your time is up.
But one of the things with the regional plan, those open house comments were also solicited via written communication, email, texting, that sort of thing, to get as much of the public input as possible. And I can tell you the amount of response that was garnered that way was pretty impressive.
Okay.
Can I make a suggestion? Liz Archuleta has a supervisor meeting in her district fairly often, and I don't know if she's doing them Zoom, or I'm sure she's doing them by Zoom. And she also does a weekly newsletter. And I don't know if Judy's still on here or not, but we could ask our supervisors to do a report and ask for public comment to us, to Melissa. We could put this online, say, look online and see what we've done. And you make a report via the supervisors' newsletters. It's just one more way to reach out. I read mine. I find it very interesting. And it just might make it that much more available to more people. Just a thought.
So as another way to promote it, is that what you're suggesting?
Trying to do two things at once. You want to tell people what we're doing and where we are and what we're looking at, and you want to hear back, and you can't put them in a room. So this would just be another way of getting more feedback, maybe to a different pool. I don't know. I read what Liz sends out once a week.
Yeah, Harriet, so do I. And I agree with you on this.
Is it once a week or once a day? It seems like. But I think we're getting a little off topic here. I think we need to get back to the schedule itself. Brian, I think you had a great idea there that we need to schedule out the subsets here so that we can find out where we can start going more macro. And until we have that information, I don't know that we can make any decisions about any kind of a public meeting. And it sounds like the majority of the people here, Melissa, are saying that our monthly meeting schedule is working best right now for them. So that's what we need to stick with. Is that a fair synopsis, Commissioner?
It is from my standpoint. Thank you, Rob.
I don't know. The only thing I would say is I'm willing to change everything else around except planning and zoning commission hearings. If I have to stay up till midnight or 1 in the morning for this, I'll do it.
I guess that's the other option, is to just go longer. But it's
a 3-hour Zoom meeting is about.
It's pretty long. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't. That's
too long.
So you guys, this is ultimately, we don't want to burn you out, right?
Yeah,
I
I'm
do
getting
not
burnt
want
out.
that to happen.
I've got a lot of COVID issues going on, and I've got a lot of other meetings with the state and some other organizations that I'm instrumental in. So,
well, this is a reality check, because, you know, we want to get this plan done in a timely manner. So, and I know that you've heard that we've got other area plans kind of waiting for attention. So, you know, we want to be sensitive to what we need to get done work-wise. We also, you know, like I said, I'm very, very aware that burnout is a real possibility. I do not want to do that. I want this to be, you know, meaningful and enjoyable for you. Really, and that is the priority here, because you have our attention now, and we're not going to shortchange you.
So could you move forward to that slide that showed the schedule coming up?
Yeah. That one?
Well, actually, I think it might have been the slide before that, that our next proposed meeting is February.
Well, okay, so this was just for the community outreach ideas about how to do that. But
right.
Then this one was our next regular scheduled meeting is February 11th, a Thursday.
Okay.
Right, so that's in, I think it's 3 weeks, because we moved this meeting back a week. And what my goal is to have the remaining subcommittees scheduled
Yes.
and will have met and finished.
Yes.
But then the question really is, how fast can the full committee get through reviewing those? And what I will try to make sure you have before the meeting are those drafts. And I know we're still going to need to go through it as a full committee, each goal and policy, but it is helpful. Like Bernice had them with her. She was looking at those tonight. So she already had some thoughts on that.
Okay, that sounds like a good plan. Does anybody have any inputs on that?
Well, all I would say is that our February 11th meeting, that a second one if necessary, would be a good time to talk about it then and see what the consensus is.
Yeah, and just see where we're at. And, you know, I really don't want to rush this.
Well, and I get that, Bernice, and, you know, we don't want you to feel rushed. We do want to gently prod. How's that sound? Okay. Just so we keep moving. There's momentum. And I think as you build a rhythm for going through the goals and policies, then, you know, we can start to, you know, kind of pick it up a little bit, if that makes sense.
And
because, you know, we don't need to wordsmith these. We need to keep it, remember, you know, the bigger picture and to make sure the essence is captured. We can wordsmith later to make the grammar good and everything. Yeah.
I think
I'd just like to say that I know what Melissa is dealing with here and the pressure she is under from the county, Board of Supervisors and within her department. So I'd like to help her out as much as possible in that respect, because I know what else is waiting after this one's done.
Thanks, John.
So I think we have a plan moving forward, at least to the next meeting scheduled.
We do.
It's important for all of us to step up to those committees that we've agreed to and get those policies defined and back to Melissa, if at all possible, before the next meeting, so that we can get through as much of that as possible.
Right.
I'd like to kind of wrap this up, because if there's any people from the public that would like to make some comments, we've already run over and I respect their time. So Melissa, is there anything else that we need to do before I can solicit some public input?
No, I think that was it. And just so you know, for some reason, I am not able to get into the chat right now. Maybe if I stop share, I can see it. So let me do that. And then
while you're doing that, I'm going to ask anyone that is online right now from the public, if they have any comments, to please share those with us.
Yeah, this is Russell Weedman. I did have a lot of comments to make during the course of the meeting tonight, but since I'm on the not on the committee, I didn't want to jump in every 5 minutes. And I know that it's late now, so I will not make too many comments, but I have a lot of history here that I'd kind of like to share with the community, things that I've seen over the years. You know, it goes back to when Highway 89 was a 2-lane highway and the landfill was free. And it was really a rural community at that time. Pretty much most of that has disappeared out here on 89 now. But anyway, maybe next time. So I thank you for all your work that you're doing and how you're attempting to do this. So anyway, thank you very much.
Russell, I would encourage you to, any comments that you feel you would like us to hear, please share those. And if it's even via email to Melissa so she can distribute it out to us, we would very much appreciate hearing those.
That's what I was going to suggest, Russell. You could please email me. Do you have my email address?
Yes, I do. And
okay.
I think what I may do is just call you.
Okay.
I much prefer that over the emails. And, you know, I have a lot of simple things to say. I think there was a lot of information from the public in the survey, and that the draft vision and a lot of things should be, that the public comment should be reflected in the vision statement. And a lot of the vision statement was done before the survey. Now you're having to go back and make changes and take things out, and
Well, it was
But
drafted before the survey and we have updated it since the survey, just FYI.
yes, yes. Even tonight, I heard some of it updated. There was a part, I think, in land use and development where the word "we" was used a lot. You know, we wanted subdivisions as opposed to land splits, different things like that. I think that was taken out tonight. Someone made a good suggestion there. I forget who it was, but you know, I always wondered who "we" was because that didn't reflect my opinions in many ways. You know, I've seen it's very, I just have a lot of information. So I'm going to call you, Melissa, and I will maybe leave a time when you could call me and maybe we could chat for 20 minutes or a half hour or so. And I
Okay,
could,
sounds good.
yeah. But thank you anyway for all you're doing on this. I appreciate it. And I will be giving you a call probably tomorrow morning sometime and at least leave a message on your phone.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right.
Melissa, when Russell's gotten some concerns, and Russell, thank you so much. I wish you could kind of eavesdrop on these subcommittees, because I'm with you, Russell. We go back to that survey, Bernice, myself, the other people on our subcommittees, and say, no, this is what the survey said. We did listen to those surveys, and we are trying to implement them. Tonight, we didn't go, we went through one subcommittee, but at least the ones that I've been on, we really always mention, well, the survey says, and so you have been heard.
Well, I heard that too.
Okay, good.
I am aware of that, and I've listened to probably 4 or 5 at least of the meetings now, and
Oh, good. Mm-hmm.
and 2 of them. I know what's going on, and you know there was even something you were talking tonight about the vegetation, the native vegetation out here. And I could tell I had a lot to add on that. I mean, there's only one possible way to protect the native vegetation out here, and that's to completely leave it alone.
Correct.
And yeah, and the minute it is destroyed, someone was mentioning scraping the land. That
Yes.
can be done by horses, over
Yes.
grazing, by bulldozers, backhoes, cars, many different ways. And once that native vegetation has been killed, if you leave it alone, it will not be restored on its own, and maybe any other way too. It will not be restored for at least 20 to 30 years it takes.
And remember,
Right.
everybody, that we do have additional chapters that get into more of the weeds. I just had to say that.
Okay,
Yeah.
good.
I understand, but I
Yes.
have a lot of information. One of the areas where the native vegetation and wildlife and all of that gets disturbed the most are the subdivisions, where
Yep.
more homes are packed into a small area.
Right.
And
And
I
so,
see that I have been watching this happen out here for 40 years, and I've always tried to protect the native vegetation on my land, and it's not easy. And a group of us out here had to actually buy about 50 acres of land in order to protect it from a potential subdivision that we were afraid for sure the county would okay the zoning. I think I might have mentioned that to you before, but it's an ongoing battle to maintain this rural character that we did have out here. When I moved out here, Highway 89 was 2 lanes. They were still farming. The land around me was 80 acres, 20 acres, just a few different lots. The Mormon bean farm was still there, which was, I don't know, 100 acres or something. Now that's gone. The rural character that was here is pretty much gone. When I drive down 89 now to town, it doesn't feel rural anymore. It feels more residential. And, you know, call it
Yep.
character, but the actual truth of it is a lot of that is gone. And many of
Russell,
the
yeah. So Russell, I am going to interrupt here. And I do want to capture your sentiments, but I am conscious of how long our committee has been working tonight.
I understand.
So yeah, just call me, and what we might want to do is, just have you put together, some real specific comments for the committee. I think you're hitting on some some topics that they've already talked about and, you know, they want to hear about. It came out in the survey, but I think we do need to, and Rob, I'm going to go back to you here.
Okay.
Thank you, Russell.
Yeah,
I
Russell,
was-
thanks for those inputs, and we look forward to hearing back from Melissa on your phone call.
Yes, I'm
Is there
excited.
anyone else from the public that has some comments they would like to share with us this evening?
Just real quick, as a Timberline resident as well with Russell, I feel like we have a lot of input to put in, and I don't have any contact information for anybody in the group. Can you provide that publicly for us?
Who's
Melissa,
speaking?
could you post?
I'm sorry, this is Nikki from Timberline.
So I'm going to put my, if you can see the chat, I will put my email in the chat.
Thank you.
And Melissa, also please put a link to the county website that
I
has
will. Thank you.
Mickey, there's some great information there that's available that talks a lot about what we've been doing for the last year, and ways to contact and be involved. I'm sure I would be happy to talk to you one-on-one if that's something you would like to do, or providing inputs through Melissa and whatever. All of us as commissioners are here to represent the rest of our neighbors here in Doney Park.
And I am putting the link to our webpage right in the chat now. So let me know if you get that.
And Mickey, let me add too, also, when you get into that link and it's confusing, it was confusing to all of us, Melissa or one of us can help you walk it through, because when you get there, it's busy. It's busy, but there's a lot of good information in
There's
there.
a lot of info, all of our meeting notes, all of the
Yep.
presentations, everything from day one is there.
Yep.
Perfect, thank you. And I've been able to attend
Yes.
most of these meetings.
Oh, good.
And I appreciate the feedback.
Yeah, great.
Did you see that, Nikki?
Yep, I got it in the chat. Thank you.
Good.
I think it's really important that we make time to hear from these people during the meetings, because they can help us make decisions going forward.
Absolutely.
That's true. Yeah.
Absolutely.
That's why we insisted on public comment in the beginning and end of every meeting.
Yep.
So that was Mickey or Nikki. Anyone else from the public that's here would like to share something? And Melissa, were there any chat comments that we need to hear?
I'm not seeing anything that I didn't see earlier that needed to. There was a suggestion for adopt a highway possibly, but that's an ADOT thing, just some ideas. And just some suggestions that, yeah, I mean, just kind of general comments about zoning ordinance.
Perhaps those could be included in the minutes for us, please.
Yeah, does anyone know how to capture the chat?
You can
Save the chat. I don't know how to do that. Let me see. Maybe
use the
save chat. That might work. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you can send those to me, Melissa.
Okay, and I'm also.
Thank you, Jessica. And with that then, unless anyone else has any other comments, I think we can draw this meeting to a conclusion, adjourn until February 11th, where we'll all get to meet again.
Oh, don't forget those subcommittees. We'll be meeting before then. You know that, Rob.
Oh, yes,
Yes,
you will
we
be
will.
meeting before that.
All right. Thank you, everyone, very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank
you.
Did you
Have a good night.
information for tomorrow's meeting?
I'm sorry, Bernice, what was that?
Did you send out the Zoom information for tomorrow morning's meeting?
You don't have it?
Isn't it at 9 o'clock?
It's at 9. Yes.
Okay, if you already sent it out, I have it then. So
I don't either. I just typed Bernice and asked Bernice, what time are we meeting tomorrow? So yeah.
I didn't see it. That's why, I cleaned out my email, and I thought if you did send it out, I probably have it. But if Liz didn't have it, maybe I don't have it.
I sent it as an Outlook invite. Maybe you didn't get it that way. So,
Yeah, probably.
Okay. That Outlook invite, as soon as you click respond, it goes away.
It goes onto your calendar. So,
okay.
let me I'll make sure you guys have it again.
Okay.
All right.
Thanks for
Thank
bringing
you.
that up.
Thank you. See you at 9 tomorrow morning.
Okie doke.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well,
Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone, too.
Stop recording.
So yeah,